Okay, good evening, everyone. Calling to order the meeting of the Board of the Select Board for August 10th. It's 6 p.m. And to start off, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thanks. So before we start, I'd just like to kind of reinstitute what we were doing in the past in terms of any words of thanks, wisdom, anything that's happened over the last few days or weeks that we would like to talk about in particular. Anybody have anything offhand? That I'll just note that this morning there was a fire down near Joy's house down on Gun Road, and so thank you to the fire department that acted very quickly and managed to get that under control. That was a crazy morning, I think, early on this morning. And Tammy had asked me if she could say one thing, so I'm going to let her pipe in since we're all quiet tonight. So.
Tammy Loomis, 298 College Highway, president of the Historical Society and chair of Celebrate Southampton. I would like to say thank you to all the businesses in town and out of town and the people that have stepped up to donate. We will have Friday night, we have this out. If you can't make it Saturday, Friday night you can do the raffle. You'll be able to see several items. You'll have a sheet with it all. It is incredible, the generosity of the town and everybody here. This is a schedule.
Thank you. You'll probably actually be seeing that. The camera's pointing at you that way, so I think they got you there. Perfect. Very good.
So, great. Thank you. We'll have t-shirts for sale also.
Very good. Thanks, Tammy. No, we're all looking forward to it. So for everybody who doesn't know, the big festivities start on Friday night at grab-and-go dinner at the church and go over to the park for a concert at around 7 o'clock. And then all day Saturday, events at Conant Park. So hoping to see a lot of people out. Hopefully the weather will cooperate and we won't be in 90-degree weather. So with a little bit of luck. Anybody else have anything for any words of wisdom or anything? If not, we will move on. What we're going to have tonight is a public hearing. We're going to have a review of our stormwater management program. And Randall, if you would like to introduce our guest speaker tonight.
Sure. Highway Superintendent. I'd like to introduce Emily Tully. She's a planner with Ty & Bond and our consultant for MS4 compliance.
Great. Wonderful. All right, Emily, welcome. All right, the floor is yours, and we even have a screen that looks like it might work for your presentation. Hopefully the cameras will also focus on the screen too.
Sounds good.
Good.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to give an annual update on the Town of Southampton's stormwater program. My name is Emily Tully, and I am with Ty & Bond, and we help the Town of Southampton with its stormwater program compliance. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide an update on the Town of Southampton's ongoing stormwater management program. This includes stormwater bylaw revisions, the past year's accomplishments. I'll talk a little bit about what we plan to do this year and then a few of the future permit requirements moving forward. And it's also an opportunity to solicit feedback on the town's stormwater program. So just as a kind of refresher introduction into what is stormwater. Stormwater is when there's precipitation, rain or snow that falls on paved surfaces like rooftops or driveways or parking lots and becomes then stormwater. If it doesn't soak into the ground, it heads to the nearest storm drain. The storm drains feed to outfalls that then go directly to our water bodies. When stormwater picks up trash or other chemicals like fertilizers from lawns or gasoline on the road, that's stormwater pollution, which is the fastest growing type of water pollution in Massachusetts. And then the type of stormwater that we're talking about tonight is the EPA's small MS4 stormwater program. EPA regulates stormwater in a number of ways. For communities like Southampton, it's through the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. And within the NIPD's program, it's the MS4 program. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And in Massachusetts, that program is jointly administered by EPA and Mass DEP. In Southampton, our MS4 area includes all the drainage within an area called the urbanized area. The map on the top right is all of the urbanized areas within Massachusetts. You can see that in Western Mass, we have significantly less than in Eastern Mass. It's based on census data, a combination of the 2000 and 2010 census data, and is related to population density. And so you can see in the inset there, for Southampton, our regulated areas under the MS4 program are really just kind of spillover from the regulated areas from Easthampton and other adjoining communities. So there's a little bit up near Pomeroy Meadow Road. There's a little bit over there on the boundary with Easthampton. The little corner in the southeast where the Pequot Pond is, and then there's a little bit that kind of slices up there. So it's really kind of unusual for the MS4 program that, you know, for many communities, like you can see Easthampton, the majority of Easthampton is regulated under this program, but for us, it's in these little blobs, which is both good and bad. It makes it a bit of a challenge to figure out geographically. So under the MS4 program with EPA, we submitted a notice of intent to discharge stormwater under the 2016 general permit in 2018. We received our authorization on 2019 with an expiration date of 2022. This is a bit of a strange kind of administrative thing. The previous permit was the 2003 permit, and it wasn't replaced until 2017, which means that it expires in 2022 already. We're expecting it to be administratively continued for probably quite some time, like the previous permit, while they are figuring out how to replace the existing permit. So it means that it's effectively a 5-year permit with they've already listed out 10 years worth of compliance items within the permit because they're anticipating that this existing permit, what we call the 2016 general permit, will be in effect for quite a bit. So for the town of Southampton, we developed a stormwater management plan that describes the compliance with this general permit that we finalized in 2019, and it's updated annually. The figure I have up here is just an example to give you an idea of where we're at for compliance with the permit. This is one of the implementation timelines that EPA provided as part of the permit that describes all of the different milestones that we need to meet. It's more or less aligned with fiscal year, so we just concluded permit year 3 on June 30th, and we've just started permit year 4 this year. So the Stormwater Management Program, which is available on the Highway Department's website, describes the town of Southampton's compliance with what are called 6 minimum control measures. These are public education and outreach, public involvement and participation, which is what this meeting tonight satisfies a requirement of, the illicit discharge detection and elimination program, construction site stormwater runoff, post-construction stormwater runoff, so stormwater management in new development and redevelopment, and good housekeeping and pollution prevention. We also have additional requirements related to impaired waters. The town of Southampton is within the Connecticut River watershed, which is part of the watersheds for the Long Island Sound. Long Island Sound has a total maximum daily load set by EPA for nitrogen. Therefore, the town of Southampton is subject to requirements related to that TMDL for nitrogen. This is true for, obviously all of the communities in the Connecticut River Valley. There are also 2 impaired water bodies within Southampton based on the Massachusetts list of impaired waters. Pequot Pond, which as you can see here is impaired for basically non-native plants, which they note, but there's not really anything that you're required to do about under the Impaired Waters program. Chlorophyll, dissolved oxygen, enterococcus, and total phosphorus. And the Manhan River is impaired for E. coli. And so these impairments then give us additional requirements under those minimum control measures in the stormwater management program as far as these impairments relate to stormwater. So for the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about what we did for these minimum control measures compliance over permit year 3, over the past year. So for MCM1, the Public Education and Outreach, the town of Southampton is a member of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission's Connecticut River Stormwater Committee, which does a really fantastic job with public education and outreach messages. They do kind of a multimedia campaign. They do things on, for example, Facebook, which is what I've shown a little clip of here. Here's a message about lawn care that they put out in the summer, a seasonally timed message. And it links to the Think Blue Connecticut River website, which has a ton of resources to provide additional information to different types of audiences, like industry, construction, developers, and regular people. So we have these annual messages that are required to be sent out on different topics at different times, and that requirement is satisfied both by the PVPC, Connecticut River Stormwater Committee, and also I think Randall runs your Facebook page, and he reposts a lot of this stuff, which gets you some additional outreach credits for the stormwater program. MCM2, public involvement and participation. This is just a way to get the folks in Southampton involved in your stormwater program. So it's this presentation tonight and offering an opportunity for public feedback on the program. And then it's all, different events that the town might hold that involves getting the community involved in stormwater. Things like even a National Prescription Drug Take Back Day, because that's keeping prescription drugs out of your water and wastewater. Environmental scholarships. Posting the stormwater management plan online, and then EPA does recognize that any other events that may have been planned over the last year, 18 months, have been impacted by COVID-19 restrictions on gatherings. One of the biggest MCMs in terms of requirements and effort is the illicit discharge detection and elimination program. The illicit detection, discharge, and elimination program is meant to look for illicit connections into the storm sewer system. So with communities that have sewers, it's a lot more complicated because you're really looking for places that sewer is maybe seeping into your stormwater. For a community like Southampton, it's complicated in a way because you don't have those potential direct connections. And so your illicit connections would be, people with failing failing wastewater systems, their on-site wastewater systems, or kind of more difficult to track down things like that. So one of the major requirements under this program is to do screening and sampling of all of the outfalls within the regulated area under dry weather conditions. We did that in the previous permit year. We found 5 outfalls that had dry weather flow, and so those were sampled for signs of illicit connections or discharges. We didn't find any detections of E. coli or surfactants, which are like laundry, the signs of laundry or those types of connections. We did find total nitrogen above benchmarks in 4 of the outfalls, and chlorine above benchmarks in 4 of the outfalls. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are problems with these outfalls. Some of these could just be things from like lawn runoff or agriculture or anything like that. So the next phase of investigation is something called Catchment Investigations. So we've identified the areas that drain, the geographic areas that drain to each of these outfalls, and then we'll go to manholes in those catchments and open those, take a look, and if we see anything, then we'll take a sample. If we don't find anything at those manholes in the storm sewer system that indicate any illicit connections, then we can officially say, okay, this catchment, we don't need to do any further investigation. If we do find something, then we kind of move up the system until we can pinpoint where the potential illicit connection may be. And so just to kind of give you a frame of reference, this figure here is so this E is Easthampton. And here's Glendale Road right here. And so these outfalls that have the purple circles around them are 3 that we had that had dry weather flow and that we sampled and had total nitrogen above those benchmarks. So we'll prioritize these for the next round of investigations, for those catchment investigations, because there's more of a sign that maybe something is going on there than the other outfalls where there was no dry weather flow at all. They were just dry during dry weather, which is what you would expect. For MCMs 4 and 5, the construction and post-construction stormwater management, the stormwater bylaw revisions to meet the additional requirements of the general permit were passed at town meeting. The bylaw itself for the stormwater management is pretty basic, which is what is typical. It just has the definitions, clarifications to applicability, and thresholds and exemptions. And then the meat of the standards is in rules and regulations, which is the way that most towns are set up for this. So these bylaw revisions are really just clarifications on applicability and adding some definitions and clarifying some of the exemptions that are spelled out in the general permit. Other requirements of the general permit related to post-construction stormwater management. One of the bigger ones is requiring low-impact development techniques to be used to the maximum extent feasible. It's basically requiring applicants to either use what are called low-impact development techniques or to explain why those aren't feasible to use on their site. Low-impact development techniques is kind of a broad term used for a set of techniques that really try to manage stormwater on site in as natural a way as possible. So minimizing impervious area, keeping trees, all with the idea of improving infiltration that can happen on site as opposed to having to manage stormwater in an active way. Another requirement is to require as-built plans, specifically within 2 years of completion of construction. One of the trickier things is that the stormwater standards of the general permit are a bit more stringent than the Massachusetts stormwater standards that most people are familiar with that are associated with the Wetlands Protection Act. It also requires specifically management of construction site waste and some clarification on inspection and enforcement requirements. In the past year, we also got a jump start on some of the reports that are required in this permit year. We did what's called a Municipal Stormwater Retrofit Inventory, which means we took a look at town-owned sites and assessed their potential for stormwater retrofits. The tricky thing for Southampton is that this is looking at sites within the regulated area, and there just aren't that many town-owned sites within the MS4 regulated area. So we concluded that probably the most feasible place, if there were to be stormwater retrofits to be done, would be roadway projects, which is perfectly fine with EPA and in compliance with this program. So basically, as roadway projects within the regulated area are completed, if we're starting to think about those, should also be thinking about the potential for stormwater retrofits that would just improve stormwater treatment at the same time. We also did an assessment of street design rules and regulations relative to the creation of impervious cover. So we looked at town bylaws and regulations that relate to impervious cover, things like subdivision rules and regulations, and looked at whether there were any opportunities to decrease the amount of impervious cover that those rules are requiring without compromising safety. And we made recommendations for potential changes based on the American Planning Association and Center for Watershed Protection recommendations. So these are things like turnarounds or right-of-way widths and sidewalk widths, those types of regulations. We also looked at the town of Southampton's bylaws and regulations relative to green infrastructure and whether green infrastructure is prohibited or encouraged. Specifically, the general permit has you look at whether, and that's what these photos are of these items, pervious pavers or rain gardens or rain barrels, if there are impediments to their use when site conditions permit. The basic summary for Southampton is that there aren't impediments to their use, but there aren't necessarily encouragements to their use either. Mm-hmm. So I think most of our recommendations for that are more or less related to public education. I think most folks just aren't aware that these options exist and are good options for their sites. And then for good housekeeping and pollution prevention, we did the most of our work for this MCM in the previous permit year. So the last permit year just involves kind of implementation of standard operating procedures for good housekeeping, annual requirements like street sweeping and catch basin cleaning. Some of those are enhanced due to the impaired waters. So for example, because of the Long Island Sound, TMDL, we have to sweep streets twice a year instead of once a year. And then record keeping, making sure that we have records of streets that were swept and how much was removed and catch basins that were cleaned and so on. So, plan for permit year 4. This is a clip of the annual report that we are required to submit to EPA every year that summarizes what we did. And I don't expect you all to read this, I know it's all very small, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the scope of, these are the things that they are requiring programs to do every year. And so the top couple of bullets are things that are specific to permit year 4, and then this pretty comprehensive list here are all of the annual requirements required as part of compliance with the MS4 program. So quite a bit of work that we're keeping on top of on an annual basis, although our specific permit year requirements are decreasing as we move through the permit term. So for public education and outreach, we want to continue with those annual messages through PVPC. And in this next year, I think the focus is on developers and industrial facilities. For MCM2, public involvement, we want to continue to make that stormwater plan available and maybe consider other safe ways to involve the public in the stormwater program. For the illicit discharge program, we want to move into those catchment investigations. So this figure, the purple outlines are the catchments, so areas that we've determined have drained to a specific outfall. And then we want to identify these key junction manholes within each catchment and start those high and low priority catchment investigations. All key junction manholes, which are really just a manhole that kind of can represent the whole system. So it's a junction of, it's this little red circle of all of the systems. So it's representative, hopefully, of the stormwater system in that area. So these all need to be inspected under dry weather conditions, but you don't have to complete the whole catchment investigation program until permit year 10, which is gives us a good amount of time to do these investigations. For MCM4, we want to continue doing our record keeping and tracking our site plan reviews and inspections and enforce the revised bylaw and stormwater rules and regulations. For post-construction stormwater management, those regulatory reports that I was talking about for green infrastructure and impervious cover creation, we need to finalize a timeline for implementation of those recommendations and, again, enforce the revised bylaw and rules and regulations. And then for good housekeeping, we want to continue to implement those programs that we set in place earlier in permit years. So standard operating procedures for good housekeeping at town-owned facilities, those annual requirements for catch basin cleaning and street sweeping, including those that are enhanced by our impaired waters, and record keeping. We also, for permit year 4, have impaired water requirements. PVPC is working on the nitrogen source identification report that's related to the Connecticut River watershed. There's also a phosphorus source identification report that's required for Pequot Pond. So we'll be calculating the MS4 area, the regulated area that drains to Pequot Pond, figure out how much impervious area and what's called directly connected impervious area is within Pequot Pond, identify areas within there that may have high phosphorus loading, and then potential retrofit opportunities to reduce any phosphorus inputs into Pequot Pond. So these are things, this diagram here is showing kind of the train of actions for reducing nutrient inputs. You know, you start with pollution prevention, things like pet waste signs and providing bags. You do source control, things like street sweeping, And then you move to on-site water treatment or structures, structural best management practices to remove phosphorus, so that you're reducing all of these things combined to reduce the phosphorus load in the impaired water. So in summary, Southampton is doing a good job of actively meeting its MS4 requirements. We are ahead of schedule in terms of our permit year specific requirements. We will be submitting an annual report that summarizes all of the activities that were completed in permit year 3 by the end of September. And as I mentioned before, the permit that this is all being authorized under technically expires in 2022, but we do expect that to be administratively continued for an undefined period into the future. Looking ahead at future requirements, and so because of that, we expect that these annual requirements will continue on. In permit year 5, we will have to look more at those nitrogen and phosphorus retrofits, and continue those catchment investigations. In permit year 6, communities are required to install a demonstration retrofit BMP, so that will take some thinking on what might be the best opportunity for that. And then by permit year 10, assuming we're still under this permit by that point, there are additional mapping requirements that need to be completed by that point, and we need to complete those catchment investigations. At that point, at this point, I will open for discussion or questions.
Great, thanks very much. Well, I have a couple. BMP, I'm going to say best management practice.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm so used to my acronyms.
That's okay. Just a brief explanation of what retrofit really entails. How complicated is that? What does it mean?
For your community, for Southampton, I don't think it's particularly that complicated, because it's not like you have big town facilities that are within your regulated area. But in terms of the general permit, they are looking at retrofit to mean to take an existing site and improve its existing stormwater treatment. This could be even as simple as reducing impervious area on the site, or doing something like making your roof drain connect to the grass so that it absorbs into the grass instead of going directly into the storm sewer system. Or it could mean adding a stormwater practice like a rain garden, or something like a storm scepter, depending on the specific issue at the site.
Okay. And I think you mentioned the notion of things during the construction or post-construction phase, about some recommendations that have been made. Does that all tie in then, I'm assuming, with the planning board and the building commissioner in terms of part of their checkoff list that they have to verify as things are under construction or post-construction? Does that, how far have we gone with that? How much is tied in now?
So Emily prepared a couple technical bulletins that I sent out to the affected boards and commissions with the recommendations. So like, for instance, there were recommendations on different subdivision design criteria that they will have to implement when they're redoing the planning board bylaw.
Okay.
So I think I sent those out. I copied you at, I believe, last week.
Okay.
I had the opportunity.
This would be the subdivision bylaw, or?
No, the technical bulletins, technical memoranda that Ty and Bond presented. There was one on design standards, and then there was one on green infrastructure, and then the third one was the retrofit inventory. So retrofit inventory is one that I don't think I shared that with everyone, because it mostly had to do with, we're going to have to do it with highway projects, like a roadway swale or something, probably. Yeah.
Okay, good. Other questions, anybody?
I have a number of questions, maybe more Randall related, but kind of practically speaking, when you sweep the streets, which is a big, like resident satisfaction, what do you do with what you collect? Are you able to reuse it?
So we have, we work under a Mass DEP it's not a beneficial, it's a allowable use document that we can use it in municipal projects, things like that. If we didn't, we would have to pay to get it
You have to what?
We
Pay
would
to
have
have
to
it taken
pay
out.
to have it trucked and disposed, used as like daily cover for a landfill. So
Okay.
we try and use as much of it as feasible.
Okay, and whose job is it? Everybody's, yours, the residents' job to clean the catch basins?
Certainly, I think it's everyone's job, but specifically, we go out. What do you mean, like clean the leaves?
Yeah, all
off
the
top?
leaves that block them
Yeah,
and
I mean, if
everything.
residents notice they're blocked, it's in their best interest to clean them off so they don't flood their neighbors out or anything. But
Yeah.
it's our responsibility to actually take the covers off and clean out the sediment from the catch basins.
And with all the rain we've been having, what is really the best practice around rain barrels?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean,
That is a good question.
the ones at my house, I just, when it's going to rain, I know I dump the old out onto the lawn
Okay.
so it doesn't gather mosquitoes. And
Okay,
it's going to rain, I get a fresh
I think a lot of
55
them have a
gallons.
bypass, or, you could just disconnect at a time and make sure it's routing somewhere that is like a grassy area where it could get absorbed.
Could soak in, yeah. Have we ever thought about a rain barrel program here?
Yes, it was actually a recommendation, and I'm looking into it. I don't think it's too much to implement. It's just finding the time to
Yeah.
do all the
I think,
coordination.
I think, is it on Easthampton or Northampton? Somebody has one, I know, that residents can buy. Is it Easthampton? Residents can buy a rain barrel and stuff. That would be a good idea.
They got them for free, I think, initially.
Oh, did they? Oh, maybe.
just like we got the compost things for free initially.
Okay.
With all the flowers down at Conan Park, having rain barrel, just water all the flowers.
There you go.
Yeah, we've got a couple things. A lot of the things I do for the transfer station sustainable materials grant
Yeah.
kind of line up with a lot of the stormwater things. So there's a couple things in the works that
Good.
we're going to implement in the next year.
Good, great, okay.
Compost bins is one of them.
Yeah? Anybody else? Joe?
What was the second pond, Pequot Pond, and what was the other one?
Oh, the Manhan River.
Manhan River.
Manhan River?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's Impaired Waters.
right,
Not just in Southampton, they pretty much all.
in general. Yeah, yeah, good. No, thanks, and actually, I'm going to take a plug here. I'll steal the thunder a minute from open space here, but we just all received this brochure in the mail, everybody, hopefully, so this is put out through the Open Space Committee about the Barnes Aquifer and the importance of taking care of our water supply. So this presentation, just perfect timing on that. I don't think we could have planned that any better.
And also funded through CPC.
Yes.
I got that yesterday. Do you have the JPEGs of that I could share on?
Charlie McDonald would have it
Okay. I can-
from Open Space, or yeah, Cindy's maybe out of town, but Charlie McDonald would be the one that has the JPEG for that.
Great.
That'd be great to be able to post it up or something too, whatever. So that's good. So everybody should have it in their mail. Take a look at it. It's well done as well. Good. Any other questions? If not, okay. Thank you very much, Emily. We
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much
Yeah,
for
that's
coming.
useful to know, and things that we need to be taking care of and paying more attention to for sure. So thanks a lot for that. So with that, we'll close off that hearing and move on to other business, okay? And thanks for testing out our new screen for the first time as well, so all's well. Very good. Okay, we don't have any presentations tonight, but we do have some appointments. And let me just look at these couple. There are, okay, that is one. Okay.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, it's in my report.
We have 3, I believe, right now. Ed, is there a 4th one, but not in our packet, maybe?
What's that?
Is there a 4th appointment? I don't have the one for Nicole Fletcher, the fence viewer.
Oh, no, it's just, that's a reappointment.
Reappointment, okay.
Yes,
All right, fine. Okay, so let's look at these. So we have these appointments. One is Jody Corey as an election worker application. This has been received and signed by Lucy, our town clerk. We have another election worker application for Janet Brown, also received and reviewed by Lucy. Then Nicole Fletcher as a reappointment for the fence viewer. Sorry, on the election workers, those are terms to expire, both of them, on August 15th, 2022. For Nicole, the fence viewer term to expire June 30th, 2022. And then the last one is for an appointment to the Ad hoc Technology Committee. This is for Megan Gentile, who would have a term until June 30th, 2022. And Megan is somebody who works in town, grew up in town, had lived in town, currently lives in West Springfield, and is now, though, eligible. She is eligible to be appointed as a member of the Ad hoc Tech Committee. So does anybody have any questions on those? Or if not, could I have a motion to approve those appointments?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Joy, any discussion?
I have a question. We had two, there's a little bit of echo here. We had two poll fence viewers initially. Did the other person not want reappointment?
They haven't replied as of yet.
Okay.
Okay. So if no other questions, can I have a vote, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so be it. Thank you. Moving on to the town administrator's report. Ed, would you go ahead, please?
Sure. The preparation work by the Highway Department for this year's road work is continuing, and the contractor work has started as Randall Camp Highway Superintendent has been able to make arrangements with the contractors to start the chip sealing process. The portions of Cook and Pequot roads have been completed with the chip sealing, and I've got in here, and this has changed as of today, that I've got the next roads to have portions chip sealed would be Upper Farmer Road and Crooked Ledge. Well, they will be the next ones to be chip sealed, but I believe that they'll probably be done in the springtime or late in the fall.
We still have a lot of prep work to do on those two, so they could occur this fall, but looking more and more likely that it won't happen until spring. But the next work we do have is paved level overlays of East Street. I'd gone over some of this work with you previously, but we're doing some of the most degraded portions of East Street just to try and hold it together. Pleasant Street will have a paved level overlay. County North, which is basically from the intersection of East Street north to the town line with Easthampton. And then we're doing what's called a mill and fill of Hillside Meadow Road. And all of that we're estimating will be done late September, early October.
Great. That will make people very happy, I'm sure.
And as long as you're up there, you've had the opportunity to actually take me out and physically show me some of the areas and why they need prep work. Would you please take the opportunity to let the select board know what that some of that prep work consists of?
So a chip seal is basically, you're just trying to seal over the surface of the road to stop water from infiltrating, because water infiltration is what causes the frost heaves and kind of rips your road apart in the winter. So if you can try and seal as many of those cracks as you can, it'll make your road last longer. So what we're doing, the chip seal basically is just, it will follow all the contours of the road. So if you have a road that's kind of out of shape, that's had heavy traffic, and you don't really notice this unless you're walking one of the affected roads, but you'll see from the crown of the road, the road should have a crown to it where it kind of just goes like that, so the water can shed off the length of the road. What happens over time with a lot of these roads is they'll develop dips in the wheel tracks. So what we're doing for prep work is going and filling in those wheel tracks so that once that thin layer, it'll follow a contour that still has a crown and shed the water and get it off the road. It also makes it easier to plow.
Sure, yeah, okay, great.
That. You fill in potholes and any dips at that time and try and take care of, make sure the water flows into the catch basins. So it's a lot of work depending on how bad the road is out of shape. The worse the road is, the more work it takes.
Good. And how much advance notice do you give people living along those roads that you're going to be out there working?
Well, I know that I've mentioned my work plan here several times, and we put up a notice on Facebook previous to the work occurring this last weekend. There was a miscommunication that the vendor was able to do both Cook and Pequot and I didn't know that they were going to do both roads
At the same
at
time.
once, but they worked a little faster than they planned on, so.
Okay,
But I received one complaint on the phone.
okay. But there's usually signs posted and so forth. I mean, for those that are not on Facebook and whatever.
If
I mean-
anybody wants to check, everything posted on Facebook is reflected on the town website as well.
Okay.
If you go to the title page and scroll down, everything on social media
Okay.
is reposted on the town website.
Great, okay.
It's a very effective means of communicating with residents.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so September, October, we can look forward to East Street, Pleasant Street, County North as a paved overlay, and the milling on Hillside.
Everything goes.
Good, all right. Good to hear.
Thank you. Thank you, Randall.
Yeah, Lucy, yeah.
So, the chip seal.
No.
East Street
Lucy,
does take-
can you stand up?
Lucy Valentin Strong Road. The chip seal on East Street, will that affect the bridge work also? If it's stuck, okay.
So just to clarify, chip seal is one pavement preservation method. What's going to happen on East Street, Hillside Meadow, County North, and Pleasant is called a paved level overlay.
Yep.
And then they just take, it's a 1.5 inch of pavement and put it on top of the existing. Unless you do like, I'm sorry, Hillside Meadow is going to be a mill and fill. Then they mill down
Yep.
1 inch and then put it back.
I just, Lucy Valentin Strong Road, just didn't know if it's, the timing would affect like the bridge work from end to end?
Nope.
You know? Okay,
Nope.
cool.
It's going to, we're going to be away from the bridge, basically.
Okay.
There's a section from Route 10 to approximately the library that's really bad. Then we skip over the bridge. And once you go up to the top of the hill past the bridge by Sophie
Yeah.
Circle,
Okay.
and we stop in there. And then there's another section up by the S-curbs.
Yeah.
And then around the corner past Fascistas, that really sharp corner there, there's some degradation
Good.
as well. So
Great. Thanks, Randall. Yeah.
Thanks, Randall.
Good, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Then moving on, just a reminder that the assessor's office will be open on Tuesdays from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and also on Wednesdays from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. while they are looking to fill the principal assessor's vacancy. I know Tammy probably got a word in before while I was out of the room, but just a reminder that Celebrate Southampton is this weekend at Conan Park and several other locations. Friday, August 13th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. With a concert by Decades in the park, and Saturday, August 14th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Franklin Regional Transit Authority would like to know who will be the town's representative to the FRITA Advisory Board for this fiscal year. I would be willing to serve in that capacity again for this year if the board would like me to. So if you would like me to, you will have to appoint me to that. Then the town has engaged Stantec for their engineering services in regards to the sidewalk project in front of the Center Cemetery, which we received the grant funding to do the design and construction of during this calendar year. Next week, on the 19th, Melissa Cryan from the state will be here to perform a site visit as part of our park grant application, which requests a stone path and water pad equipment for Conan Park. And then this was said earlier, but just following up, there was a structure fire to an accessory business building on Gun Road last night, which our fire department and EMS responded to. Mutual aid engines were brought in from Easthampton, Westfield, and a Westhampton tanker was also brought in to help. And then upcoming select board meetings, August 24th and 31st. And then select board meetings in September are the 14th and the 28th.
Good, thanks. Do we want to do this appointment to FRITA this evening? Is that something we can just do and be done with? Does anybody have any objections to having Ed be our representative to the Franklin Regional Transit Authority again?
Nope.
If not, could we have a motion to
I move to appoint Ed Gibson as the Southampton representative to the Franklin Regional Transit Authority.
Okay, second?
I'll second. Oh, okay, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, all right. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
you are it.
I have one
Thanks, Ed.
follow-up question on his report.
Sure.
If I could. Ed, if you know, under the assessor's office update, so one of the signatures required to get a certificate of occupancy is by the principal assessor. Is there a plan in place to maintain that while the office is empty?
For now, it would be the chair of the Board of Assessors. They are looking to get a vendor or someone in to serve in that capacity for a short-term and part-time basis.
So in the meantime, Mrs. West will go on site inspection.
What's that?
In the meantime, the chair will go on site and do the inspection.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Let's move on to select board reports. Who would like to go first? Who's ready? Francine? Go.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. The Bylaws Advisory Review Committee met on August 5th, and we finalized a message for, that will be posted on the town website, which we are requesting public comment on 3 draft bylaws, one on soliciting, another on nuisance or peace and quiet, and then the third one is on building numbering. So it will be, my understanding, it will go up hopefully sometime this week. Comments and feedback are due via email. An address will be posted there by September 10th. And then on September 21st, we will have an in-person, I hope, at that time, public meeting so that we can provide back to the residents the comments that we received, take in other comments that people may have before we further refine the document and move it along. And you know there's a process associated with that so that the select board can take a look at it, the town attorneys can take a look at it, and then it would go to town meeting, and then finally to the Attorney General's office. So we're looking at a several months process if we're lucky and everything goes as planned. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 8th. And we have several posted thereafter that if people watch the website and follow the agendas, there may be some interest in having people attend and participate. We just had and came from, John and I, a Board of Health meeting that was scheduled today at 5 o'clock at Conant Park. I'll just mention one thing, and I'll because most of the discussion regarding the school, and John as a member of the Norris School Committee can report on that, but I just want to mention here that the Board of Health today passed, I don't know what to call it, but have passed a policy that would require masks in all town public buildings starting tomorrow, August 11th. And that will be posted on the buildings, and this is the first advice. I think other messages will be going out. If people attempt to enter the building, don't have a mask, there are disposable masks available, and they will be provided to individuals as they come into the building. But that's in keeping with, unfortunately, the trend that we're seeing across the country, not as substantial in this area, but we certainly don't want to see our numbers climb. So I will now, that's the end of my report at this point in time. Thank you.
Then John, why don't you tag on since that follows in?
Yeah, and I would just add it, and it's regardless of vaccination. So even if you have vaccination, you're required to wear a mask.
Regardless of vaccination, you're still required to wear a mask.
Okay.
Anybody above the age of 2. So the other pieces on there where they gave guidance and suggestions in anticipation of tomorrow night's Norris School Committee meeting, where we're going to discuss and potentially vote on any enhancements or restrictions to opening school in 2 weeks. But the biggest one was the mask, and their wording was public buildings. So we take that to encompass North School.
Okay.
As far as my other committee reports go, none of the ones that I have to report on met within the last 2 weeks. Not that I didn't have a lot of meetings, but
None of those meetings. Okay.
that's all I have to say.
That's good. All right, great, thanks. Next, anybody? Joy?
Yeah, I can go ahead. Housing Authority met on July 28th. We discussed the components of the Housing Action Plan with PVPC rep that's working with us. Our goal is to get the affordable housing in Southampton up to 10%, and which would be in line with Chapter 40B, which would mean 12 units per year in Southampton, which we know is quite the goal. So we're taking it step by step. One of our big goals also is to create and work on the Housing Trust Fund. So there's a lot that's going into the plan. It's still in the works. We want to reach out to builders and interested in volunteers in town. So if anyone's interested in working with that housing authority, we're looking for volunteers, people who have experiences in social services, construction, anyone who would like to see affordable housing in town. We discussed the public hearing in September. A community meeting to discuss the plan. That's something that we have to have public comment on and get feedback from.
This is the housing production plan?
Yeah, the housing action plan.
The action?
Yes,
okay.
yes. And then we met again on August 2nd. There was, sorry, it was a short meeting. We rescheduled the meeting discussion to Tuesday, September 23rd for the community meeting. And we are talking about getting new member recruitment by sending out letters to interested town citizens who may be interested in joining our group or have any ideas about the housing action plan. We really are inviting ideas from people and getting more participation. So we talked about that. We talked about the CARES Act distributions, if there was any update to that, and seeing if they want to change, if there's something going on with the grant that could help us with the housing in town. And we don't want to stop talking about the housing trust. We definitely want to keep that in the forefront of our goals. So that was it for Housing Authority. They were really busy in the past 2 weeks because they have a lot coming up. So I'm excited for the public meeting on September 23rd. In regards to Conservation Commission, they met that same day, actually, August 2nd, 2021. And there was some permits in the beginning, and then we discussed Meadows Sanctuary, the grant projects, which is still going through. Best management practices for removing invasives in the plants, as we heard, there's invasives, and trying best practices on how to deal with it in the within the town, and getting lots of volunteers. What we really need is volunteers from the town, people who know wetland scientists, who have a background in environmental science, who can identify invasives, getting out there on their own properties and on town properties and helping remove these invasive plants. And if they're also looking to join the Friends of Open Space as well. The Conservation Commission discussed needing updated records for their account, and they look forward to seeing what takes place after the audit. They just want to make sure everything's in line, because it can really affect applications for grants and things aren't up to date as they want it to be. So that was a concern of theirs, and they just wanted to keep it in the
I know
forefront.
they've been concerned about getting their revenue side of their books up to date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was all.
Okay. Just one thing on the invasives. If I'm not mistaken, somebody within Concom, it might have been Brittany Goodermuth, had done some nice posters,
Yeah, the wanted posters, yes.
of, various invasive species. So,
yeah.
wanted, here's what, multiflora rose looks like, or here's what knotweed looks like. And I'm not sure where those, they're on our website, I assume, but I'm not sure that they're posted out at the conservation areas, are they, or?
I don't think so, and I think that's something that I can.
I wasn't sure if
bring back to them.
posters got made and distributed, or if it's just something on our website.
Yeah, I know that they were PDF versions of them, and they've been distributed online, but I don't know if they're out in.
Just to put in a plug, for anybody that does want to do some work when they're out walking on the trails and wants to do something with invasives, take a look at the website, or town website, and see there's at least 4 or 5 plants that are featured.
Yes.
Bittersweet, all the ones that we kind of know, but if you're really not sure what they look like, this would give you an idea. So that would be a good thing, too. But good, thanks.
I know when we organized a group of volunteers to help clean up the Manhan Trail, everybody had to fill out a form, volunteer form, so I'm not sure if that would apply, but
Yeah.
probably. Yeah, so CPC didn't meet in the last 2 weeks. The Board of Assessors did meet. Most of the meeting talked about the principal assessor, a vacancy, updating the job description, having an interim principal assessor coverage in the office. I thought there might be a emergency and interim PCF that didn't, in terms of the assessor assistant.
Go to the PPB
Okay, so maybe we
first,
just-
and actually under the emergency.
Right.
Once PPB actually approves that, it's in place.
It's in place,
Even though
okay.
the select board would still have to sign off on it, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's in the works to have some increase in Janine's hours. I just want to say that we're very fortunate to have the current Board of Assessors, April West, Darcy Gasparini, and Dave Arnold, who are very qualified and are working very hard to fill that vacancy. Council on Aging met, discussed ongoing activities, budget, programs. They discussed the FRTA contract that we're going to be looking at tonight. Also had a conversation about strategic goals for seniors and for the Council on Aging. And also there was a grant submitted that we haven't heard back yet about the Memory Cafe, but there was a lot of hope, very optimistic that that will get funded, and just general discussion about what that would look like and what towns would be involved. So that's pretty much it.
Great, okay. All right, and on my end, nothing much to report. The Ad hoc Tech Committee will be meeting tomorrow night, August 11th at 6 p.m., and the Grant Committee will be meeting August 18th at 2:30 in the afternoon. And really nothing happening. I'll just fold right into the Grants Committee itself. Nothing new with grant awards. Some things are being initiated, which I think Ed will talk about as we get farther down on the agenda. We do have some interest from the Mass DOT on Safe Routes to Schools program. And I passed some information on to the school principal and chief of police tonight that there's a webinar coming up on August 18th just on Safe Routes to Schools activities. But they're talking about a variety of things. They've done apparently some previous work with a sort of a parent survey in terms of how long it takes for kids to either walk or bike to school from where they live. They can do some mapping exercises to say, okay, well, these are the safest routes to get to school from where you live by walking or biking. They can put on some bike rodeos, all of those kinds of things that might have been activities that have been done in the past to sort of support the idea of safe biking, especially for the little kids. And so there's some possibilities there, and I talked to somebody from DOT who's willing to work with the school in particular to make those happen, and they don't sound like there's any cost to them. They're programs that they offer as part of the Safe Routes to Schools. So that information is out there. That's the only thing that's come up in the last week or so as new possibilities. Okay.
Can I ask a question about the grant that was funded for the sidewalk in front of the cemetery? What was the dollar amount on that?
About $124,000.
Did that go out, it has to go out to bid?
No. Well, this is under a special, yes and no.
It still does. It's just a quick bid process.
It's a special program under DOT.
We did employ someone for design?
For design, correct,
Yeah.
yes.
And that doesn't have to go to bid?
No, they were part of the process through the actually application process, so through DOT. So they provided the technical assistance for us, and they're able to engage as the initial part of the program itself. But this is a specific expedited process through the program, through the DOT. So they don't have to, this is not going to go out to all the usual drawings and construction companies and things that take many, many months. This has got to be done by the end of December. So this is intentionally a quick expedited program that DOT initiated last year. And it's called Shared Streets and Spaces. A different one, so. Do you need to have a question?
Well, what is the date? I'm so glad you brought it up. The date of that project for the sidewalk?
It will be happening anytime between now and December. It's going to be underway.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you've got something planned for Historical Society.
Cemetery walk,
Yeah, well,
okay.
yeah, so, but
I just didn't know
hopefully.
if you had a specific date.
Yeah, not a specific start date. I don't know that there is, but it'll,
No, we have
anytime.
to go out for the short
The short
period
list, to
construction
find the actual
bid, correct.
contractor, correct.
Yes, and if they do line up, no handprints in the fresh cement, please.
I can't hear.
Anyway, but yeah, so hopefully, between September and December, because there is a very short time frame to get that done, even though it's not a long stretch. It is intended to be intentionally an expedited process, working in conjunction with our regional folks at Mass DOT, as well as our technical assistant company, it's called Stan Tech. Okay? All right.
Chris,
Yes.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the zoning board will be meeting next Monday, August 16th at 5:30 here in Town Hall to discuss a property on Primary Meadow. You can check the town website for the agenda details.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's it for all of our reports, as far as I know. So we'll move on to quarterly reports. This time, we actually don't have any, but we're going to be starting those up in September. And we will have a very busy schedule of quarterly reports on a regular basis. So we'll talk about those again in just a minute. But let's go into old business and pick up where we left off with our usual topic that we've been hoping for over the last several months here, the accountant and the assistant accountant positions. Updates on those. I know you guys have been trying to do some interviews, so where did we land with any of those?
We actually, for the accountant position, we interviewed 2 individuals this past week. There are currently 3 individuals scheduled to be interviewed this week, with another 5 that we have reached out to contact and schedule interviews. Yes, I made
all the accountants or
all for the town accountant, and I made the comment the other day to Francine is that and John, that I don't know what has happened, because we did interview on Monday, but we've probably received more interest in this position in the past 2 weeks than perhaps from actually the start of way back of first putting it out for vacancy.
And this is all through Indeed still?
Combination, mostly through Indeed, but we have received some resumes just as a response to
so
a regular posting.
counting on my fingers, that's 10 candidates?
No, 11.
11?
Wow.
Well, no, 11 between the 2 positions.
Oh, okay, but 10 for the accountant position?
No, 7 for the accountant and 4 for the assistant.
Okay, all right, well, nonetheless, I mean, that's, wow, okay.
Well, counting the ones that we've already interviewed, I think it is.
Oh, no, I meant, yes,
yeah.
altogether.
Right.
Yeah, wow, okay. So you've done some this week, and then you've got some next week, is that?
No, we did some last week. We've got some scheduled this Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
And then, like I say, we have reached out to some, I think it's 5 other individuals which haven't responded as of yet, that we will, depending on how quickly, maybe we can fit them in Thursday or Friday, or maybe we'll probably be doing some next week again, too.
Wow.
And I would just add, at least on paper, they're all qualified to get into
Great.
the interviews.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Wow. And do we have anybody with municipal experience? Probably not, no? Or very little, probably. But nonetheless, I mean, people can learn, people can be trained. I'm not as worried about that as I was earlier on, I think, but I'm just so pleased that we've got this many candidates, so good. I hope somebody will pan out of this pool and we can put this to rest soon.
Yes. And then for the assistant accountant position, we have interviewed 2 either last week or this week. We have another 2 scheduled coming up for this week.
Okay, very good. Okay, good, all right. And then how about moving on that, the audit update?
Could I just ask a question, though, about the accountant? I think we talked about moving forward on 2 tracks. Is there anything on the other track, which was contracting out the service?
The companies? Did we finally reach out to the other, to the audit company on that, Francine?
Or did we hold off because it was so
We're
much?
holding off until we see what we have here,
See what we have.
and if we can work out an arrangement where they might offer some
Yeah.
support if it's needed.
I think just, if I can jump in on piggyback Francine, is the thought that we've been having during these interviews is that they're strong, the ones that we have interviewed are strong on the accounting background, and some even on the cash side, which is more similar at Municipal than the accruals.
Yep.
But also the realization that the best course of action may be contracting somebody to come in and help train them up, because we're still going to have that backlog
Sure.
Right,
to deal with,
Great.
right.
Okay,
and
Yeah, good point.
digging up some funds to pay for that.
yeah, that might work.
And in either case, I mean, even if we outsource, the recommendation from these companies is that we at least have an assistant accountant on staff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
And the other thing that was brought to my attention by actually the auditor from Easthampton, when we had spoken to her, was that the Mass Municipal Accounting Association or something has mentors that can also, it might not even be a charge, I'm not really sure, but that's also an option to be able to train.
Yeah, okay, something to look into for sure. Good, very good. Lucy, yes?
I just had a quick question. Lucy Dalton, 10th Drive. Does the hiring committee have a deadline set yet?
Not yet, until we figure out where these all go, then we'll figure out when we're going to do some interviews. I mean, once we get the top candidates, then they'll come to select board, as usual.
Is there?
6 months ago, Lucy.
I know.
Yeah.
Don't we have a tentative placeholder on our August 31st meeting?
Yes, I think we did, okay, we did actually just say that, assuming we get through all these interviews, yes.
Yeah.
I think we did have that, because we scheduled that extra meeting in August to try and do some of that. Okay? Okay, good.
We don't have a meeting August 31st.
We do have one
August
scheduled,
31st?
we will.
Yes.
Yes, we scheduled
Oh,
one to
you
get
did,
us
okay,
back on
that's right,
schedule.
that was
So we-
changed,
We've got
okay.
the 24th and the 31st.
I see that, thanks.
We kind of back to
And that
back.
will put us actually back on the same time schedule as the offices are open.
Okay,
Right,
sounds
in
good.
September, okay? Good. Okay, then how about the audit update, Ed?
The auditor's auditing firm was in last Wednesday and Thursday, and was here for most of the day looking for, they had requested some information up front, which we got for them, and then they had some other questions. And then they ran some more remote reports on Monday. At this point, the only thing that I know of that they need from us, which I am currently working on, is the update to our, of any additions or deletions from our fixed asset scheduled for during fiscal year 20. So I'm looking to put those additions and deletions in a list for them to send to them so they can update our fixed asset schedule for us. And that should
Does that
be the last
include
of it.
vehicles and everything, or just, yeah?
Yes, vehicles, land, buildings.
Okay, all right. And do you have an idea when they might produce a draft report for us?
I'm hoping that if I can get that fixed asset schedule out to them this week, that we'll have something back in draft form next week. Excuse me.
I think we had talked about the idea, and I don't think this has happened while I've been on the board, about having somebody from the audit firm actually present the report to us. Is that
I
something that
can
we
check
could
into that.
see if they would be available, either the,
They did come, Melanson did come at one point.
yeah, I mean, so either the 24th or the 31st, maybe we could, I think it would be worthwhile to
that would be good.
see if they could possibly come and present in person to us. It's easier to sort of hear that and have a chance to ask questions rather than just kind of read the report and then not know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
So,
and at this point, they haven't given you indication one way or the other whether or not there'll be a management letter?
Oh, what?
A management letter?
They always send a management letter.
Well,
Just depends what they put in it.
Any findings, that there's going to be any negative findings or anything like that? If there is, then I really want to see
have never
it.
been involved in an audit in now 3 different municipalities where there wasn't some findings.
They always send recommendations, and then they end up addressing them.
Yeah.
Or how we're going to address them.
Yeah. I think we had talked to Ed, if you wouldn't mind, if this hasn't happened yet, to put up the most recent audit, or at least share it, so that we can.
Yeah, I'm still looking
get
for
a
those
sense-
electronic files to
Get a sense
get
of
those
what
up.
were the issues from the last audit as well, okay?
And did you determine whether or not our contract goes for another year?
I have not found that as of yet. And
Okay.
It's
Because we
upstairs
definitely
in the
need to-
accounting office, so I'll try to remember to look for that
So we may
tomorrow
need to think about doing another RFP or something on that too, right? Okay, good. All right. Any other questions on the audit from anybody? If not, how about the Route 10 water main?
And they've been working on the connections to the homes last week and this week. They're supposed to finish that by the end of this week unless they get delayed, and that, from my understanding, and I don't know if you know any different, Tim, that my understanding is once that is done, that'll complete the majority of the project, and then they will let the areas set where they have put the, shall we say, the first coat of pavement. They'll let that set for a few months for any shrinkage, and then they will come back later this year and actually put the top coat on it, and then they will be done.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Great. And then East Street Bridge.
East Street Bridge, lot going on. Let's see, where do I want to start? We have a well, I got to be careful how I put this. We have a meeting for pre-construction for Concom now scheduled Monday morning, the 16th. For the contractor and Holyoke Gas and Electric, who will be contracting with a firm to do a directional drilling under the river to move the gas pipe off the bridge and under the river. We have engaged Heritage Survey to mark out the boundary points for the contractors, and they're scheduled to do that field work on either August 25th or 26th. So moving forward with that project, and it'll still require the contractor to get some information to National Heritage on, I think it's the turtles and the mussels, to move forward there. So that project is, I won't say physically starting to kick off, but all the background work and meetings are starting to get busy with that.
And so they might actually start construction work in September-ish, or?
Could be, depending on how long it takes actually to get those final permits. Yeah, I am hopeful of that, and it's possible that the first one out there is Holyoke Gas and Electric to do the cross-directional drilling piece, which they can do even before any deconstruction or construction starts on the bridge itself.
Okay.
And Ed, just for everybody listening, the contract is that this work will be completed by June of 2022, am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I got to keep a goal in mind for people. Okay.
So many dates, but yes, good. All right. Yeah, we'll need a big calendar or something in terms of all
Yes.
these projects that are.
I'm going to have to start doing that.
Yeah, I think
We
so.
actually have enough going on that, yeah, even I get a little bit confused
Yeah.
from time to time.
Especially with some of these grants, et cetera, coming along too. So, okay, any other questions on old business? Anything anybody has in mind? If not, we'll move on to new business action discussion. This is a little bit of old business in some ways. The select board priorities for FY22, we talked about those a bit last week. I think we pretty much nailed down the idea that the overall financial health of the town was really our top priority. One of the things that I don't know that we addressed, and I just want to throw it out there, we had set as part of our priorities the previous year was trying to be sure that we were doing what we could to get wages and salaries basically regularized to some extent. And we've done a bit of that, I think, through the budget process, but I just don't want us to lose sight of that as being maybe a subcategory of the overall financial health of the town, and I don't know that we specifically said that much last time. So I want to be sure that that's inclusive enough to continue to work on that. I think we made a start on that, but we haven't really, finished where we probably need to go with looking at various town positions and salaries. Okay. Anybody have any final or other thoughts on the town priority, select board priorities for FY22, and is that good enough to start with for right now, or do we need to elaborate anything more?
I just want to ask a question about what you just said, because we also had received a grant, a DLTA grant, and that's about a regional HR, or at least,
yep,
not necessarily regional HR service, but something that would benefit personnel, so to speak. Where's that at, and is there a charge for that grant to do an analysis of salaries or that sort of thing?
To my knowledge, they have not shown up, have they? Francie,
No, you're right. Originally, we went to them looking for assistance in helping to help develop a salary scale that and survey and scale that we could produce. But that was not something they would fund. But as a precursor to that, looking at the feasibility of regionalizing HR services and would be willing participant. And we said, yes, of course, and that was probably 4 months ago. I've had 2 conversations with the project officer who he talks to me about scheduling a conference call between Ed and myself and representatives from whatever other communities are participating, but to date, he's not scheduled that meeting.
Yeah,
so I do periodically go back and say, where are we? And he keeps saying, we're doing it, I'm planning it, I will get back to you, but it hasn't happened yet. And I believe that whatever work we do has to be completed by December, so it's going to be crunch time if we don't start.
So that's it.
And it's really, they're managing this whole process.
Yeah,
We're
right.
just one of the recipients, and that's from PVPC.
Yeah, so they're the ones in charge of it, grouping several towns together, and I don't know
Well, the other thing
what has taken so long. But
I think there's what you just said around making sure that whatever financial projections we try to do, or cost savings, whatever, include efforts to improve pay in town. I agree with that. There's also the HR grant that we don't know what's going to happen with that. And then there's the other issue where that I'm not sure that we have alignment with PQB around pay, salary, structure charts. And I think we somehow there's those 3 things that are still out there. I don't think we have total alignment.
Right. No, I agree with you there. So yeah, no, we have to get that all kind of in grouped, and I think PQB will be meeting soon in another week or somewhere.
16th.
16th, okay. So maybe some of that will come up again, but we do need to pull all that together.
19th.
So okay, good. But otherwise, we'll kind of work under that whole rubric of improving the financial health of the town. That's our real main goal. There's lots of other projects that can happen, but that's really where we want to focus our energies, and that will lead into the further discussion that we had on collaborations. We'll get to that one.
Chris,
back again.
if I could, I would just, jump in at the end here. I would say that the financial health of the town encompasses all that stuff, because if we don't get the town in a position where we can not only attract talent, but retain the talent that we have, it's just going to have a cascade effect. It costs twice as much to replace somebody as it does to keep them, generally speaking. Now, there's always reasons for change, and that's fine, but I see this as a whole to your point,
Yeah.
it's not written in there specifically
Right, but
wages, but it's
yeah.
wages, it's benefits, it's the quality of
It's
life,
kind of
the
all of that,
work-to-life
you know, So there's a
balance.
personnel side, there's other sides,
Yep.
yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why, I mean, that's how I felt after the meeting, but I didn't feel like we really had articulated that specifically, so that's why I just wanted to bring that up again tonight, to make sure that we don't lose sight of that. Okay, moving on to the department and committee report schedule. This is back in your packets again. We had a draft schedule last week that we made all sorts of changes on. This is the attempt at hopefully a corrected grouping of reports, and I guess I'm not really going to call it quarterly because it isn't totally quarterly in many cases, but we'll just call it a report schedule for department heads, committee, commissions, and various boards that are listed here. So what this does is lay out reporting time. There's going to be a dedicated reporting time at each of our meetings. So the first one coming up will be in September, the first meeting in September, and I don't know that I need to necessarily read these all out, but if anybody wants to make some changes, now is the time, so we can get this posted and let everybody know what to expect. Now, there's one change that I had made. If you look at the January 2nd meeting, I had added in, there was an open spot, I added in the Public Safety Committee as one. We had talked about them getting sort of rejuvenated and starting up again, and we didn't really give them a time to report back to us. So I put them in on an empty spot in January. And then I think it was John maybe that had mentioned on the May meeting that we have in the HGE, Eversource Charter, and Easthampton Media. My wondering was whether we might just swap what's now listed as June and May to finish off with town committee folks. Then we have a break with everything we're doing with the budget and town meeting and everything in May, June. And when we get back in the second half of June, we have that first meeting then with the outside entities that affect us. So I was just going to propose that we swap the May and the June as it's listed here. But I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about whether that makes sense. So the June meeting would be HGE, Eversource Charter, and Easthampton Media, whereas the May one would then be Water, Health, and the Ad Hoc Grant Committee. Does that make sense to anybody, or is that?
Yeah, the only extra piece I would throw out there for consideration is following the every other week. We have a March 29th meeting that doesn't have anything assigned to it. So there's 3 meetings in March,
There's 3 meetings in March. Oh,
the way the calendar falls. So, if
Okay.
we just fill that, we can,
so there is a March, there's a meeting 3, well,
or we go without.
or we could take a break. I think I'd vote for taking a break if we can get this far and stick to this schedule.
Okay.
Yeah,
The only thing
you're
I
right,
would
there is a
suggest
third.
is, usually with the Public Safety Committee,
Yep.
it might make sense to just have them be part of police and fire and ambulance. Because right now, the committee has to be resurrected a little bit, but I
Right.
just didn't know whether or not. And the other thing is capital improvement work meets very infrequently, and they meet in the spring pretty soon before town meetings. So I don't know that they would have a lot to report other than what's already been voted on at town meeting.
Right, okay.
So
So that maybe put public safety from January up to November, and I guess my only thought was whether they would have met and have any, but yeah, there's still time. They could, hopefully if they get meeting again, that would make sense to
the
group
police are
those.
meeting in April too, right?
Yes, so we could tentatively put them up for the November meeting,
Okay.
just to get them going, and then put them down on the April meeting as well. That would work on that one. That's a good, they do all go together, because fire and police are part of the public safety group anyway.
Good idea.
Do you want to do anything in terms of the,
And capital's where? Capital's in March right now.
Yeah.
oh, it's up in September too.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
Maybe just cross, September, I would be surprised that they would have much to say. What do you think? Anybody else?
I don't know. Ed, your thoughts on that? I don't know.
I think they almost always just meet right before town meeting.
Do they have anything scheduled?
Who's the current chair of Capital? You know?
Nothing scheduled right now.
There is none
There is none.
until they meet.
Yeah.
Was it Matt Rowland
It
before?
was Matt.
Larson, I thought.
Margaret's still on there, I believe, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe, it wouldn't hurt to hear from them. I just know that they don't generally meet until spring. when there's capital requests for town meeting. But maybe there would be if there's a special town meeting, no? No.
Could be. Yeah. Well, let's leave them on there.
Okay.
And if they have nothing much to say, I mean, if nothing else, they can talk
Right,
to
we
us.
can just bypass.
They can talk to us a little bit, though, about their process, what
Yeah.
they, you know, how they look at the various proposals coming in. I think that would be
Okay.
instructive, even if they don't have any real proposals before them, to at least hear the kinds of things that they want to look at and how they would, you know, weigh the various requests coming in.
What we have
from them.
available to us.
Right, exactly. So let's leave them in there, but
Okay.
we have them again in March, and I think that's doable, okay? So with that, we'll make the change to move the public safety complex around and swap the May and June. We'll leave the third meeting in March empty for now.
Right.
How's that? And that will get us our schedule, and we'll get that posted, and Ed, if you would do a note out to everybody, because I mean, obviously, some of these committees, I don't know, like Ag Commission doesn't meet very often, and some of the ones that may just have to be separate emails or something
I
that,
can send it out
Yeah.
tomorrow to
whatever on that.
everyone. So basically, the changes are move the public safety to the November 2nd meeting, and then swap the May and June, correct?
Right, and public safety in the April meeting as well, with the
Meeting
fire
too.
and ambulance and
Okay.
police. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're on there twice, yeah, okay. Yes, Ed.
Thanks, Rhonda. I just wanted to make sure, I know you probably took this into consideration, that May 3rd is the annual town meeting scheduled date, and the 17th is the election date.
Hadn't gotten that far, quite honestly, on the calendar.
Oh, just so you know that, yeah, those are the dates,
Yeah, okay.
first, third.
Yeah, well, we're, whatever the first meeting is in May, and then we were going to leave it blank for a month or so,
Election, right.
where we weren't doing any meetings. Any presentations, rather, from reports from the different committees, okay?
Okay, just wanted to remind you.
Thanks. Yep. On the back of the form that you have in your package, I had also just tried to suggest, and this is open for discussion, just a content outline for the reports. Personally, I find it helpful to have a little bit of structure to committee and department head reports, otherwise we can, spend a lot of time and not necessarily hit the topics that everybody might want to hear. So again, and you all can certainly react in terms of the time frame here, but let me just read it out for those that are listening to us tonight. Possible content outline. Basically, it would be the reporting. We were suggesting that maybe a maximum 15-minute presentation with questions and answers. A couple committees might want to take longer than that, but I think we should try to aim for that, because we do have pretty much three groups scheduled, sometimes four, so that's really an hour's time pretty much just devoted to reports, which could be a pretty heavy meeting in some cases here. But the report should include information related to the following topics as appropriate to your area. So a lot of these will be, I think in my head anyway, these will be very appropriate to department heads. They may be less appropriate to, or less relevant to certain committees. But there are 6 suggested topic areas: current priorities and activities, budget spending status and concerns, personnel and staffing updates, plans or events for the next quarter or 6 months, long-term issues for select board consideration and planning, and suggested tools or resources to help you do your job more efficiently or cost effectively. So those were kind of thoughts I had as possible outline. It may be too much. It may not be the right one, so.
No, I like it. Could we add a caveat that the Thursday prior to their meeting, they should submit it in written form? So now we have the weekend to look at it, maybe develop questions off of that, and there might be reference material they want to submit.
Okay.
So it's all coming in through the packet.
All right.
It also gives them a deadline to stick to.
And Chris,
Yeah.
following up a conversation that we had last week,
Yep.
I'd like to strongly recommend that any materials for
Yeah.
a select board meeting on a Tuesday are actually in the previous Wednesday by noon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So anything.
So we'll change this to
yeah.
Wednesday.
Wednesday by noon is.
Okay.
We get everything in, and it, agenda items
Right.
and anything that anybody wants. So not next week, but the following week. So the Wednesday before the Tuesday select board meeting.
And is your thought behind that, Ed, so that the packet would be completed on Thursday?
Correct.
And because then to go the next stage, if you guys aren't already there, it would be great to publish that packet online. Here's the whole packet, excluding executive session. The public can look at it, and they can see what it is before Tuesday. Again, it's transparency. It's,
Yeah,
here's the
yeah.
reports, here's the material.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the agenda's posted, but, yeah, not the details of the reports.
Not the attachments.
So, possibly.
It's a thought.
Okay, it's a thought. We'll come back to that. But I like this idea that John proposed, though. No, but the idea, let's go back to the committee report part first and finish that topic. So the notion of maybe anybody that is scheduled to report, they turn in their written report and any materials that they want. And it doesn't have to be a, super long.
It could just be a
treatise,
one-pager.
But just a one-pager of what they're going to talk about along these topics, perhaps. And again, as they are relevant to that entity, if they have any show and tell extra reports or pieces of paper they want us to look at, that gets submitted by, I would say by making it the Wednesday afternoon, actually, really. It should be all part of the whole thing. We have one deadline for any materials rather than two deadlines. So Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday noon, please.
Wednesday noon, Wednesday noon. To get any of those written materials in, and then that does allow us time to read those ahead of time, and I think probably have a more efficient meeting, because we will have, if we have questions, we're at least have gotten those thought through a little bit ahead of time. That's a good idea. Anybody have any objections to that idea? Does that sound like a reasonable one?
It does, because then it gives us time, if we want to research something a little further,
Yeah.
we can do it.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, well, let's assume that we can do that. What does anybody think about these topics? So is it too much? Are we asking too much in here? Or, so again, it's priorities, it's budget issues, any concerns that a department head, for example, would have about budget, personnel staffing issues, and again, these won't necessarily apply to some of the committees, but they will apply more to department heads, for example.
Yeah.
Sort of the upcoming events, and anything that we need to be thinking about from a planning perspective. If there's something long-term coming up that they foresee that we don't necessarily know about, if we can have a heads up on that early on to at least get it on our radar for planning purposes. And then if there's something that they could suggest to us, this may tie into the other committee, but any suggestions for how to help them do their job, okay? So,
Yes.
all right, let's keep on going. All right, this is going to be the last one. We really need to, I really would like to run meetings without too many interruptions.
I just want to know, is the town administrator going to give a report?
I'm sorry?
Will the town administrator be giving a report?
He already did.
You already did.
No, I meant, is he on that schedule?
He's on the schedule for every meeting.
No, for the quarterly report that you're setting up a schedule? for?
Yes.
Will Ed be giving a report? at
Every
some point?
meeting.
Every meeting.
This is
But
for
I mean,
various
with the
departments.
different goals, that's all. Because it's a different outlook.
These are reports for department heads and committees and boards,
But
and
it's different.
the town administrator report is a set item on the agenda every meeting, different from this. This varies according to the grouping that we've made here of which committees or boards go together. Okay? Yeah. All right. So, okay, so if everybody's okay with that, can we try to put this into some, I mean, we could just add this to the, whatever you're going to send out to the folks, and let them know that that's the intent, and have any materials in by Wednesday noon prior to that meeting that they're scheduled for, okay? All right, everybody okay with that? Do we need to vote on that, or are we good with it?
I'm fine.
We're good with it.
I think we're good. All right, perfect. Let's keep on moving. All right. Next, Ed, we have the COA FRITA grant approval.
Correct. And Joan brought this to me last week. It is the annual grant for the transportation van from the Franklin Regional Transit Authority, and it's for $28,000. It does need approval of the Select Board and the signature of the Select Board Chair.
And this is a 12-month arrangement, and yeah, it's an annual renewal.
Annual by fiscal.
Why did it go down? It used to be 31, 32,000. Why is it less?
I believe it was 28,000 last year also.
Okay. Is that because of, what is it based on? Just Because it used to be 31, I'm positive.
A lot is if it's based on...
Use?
Well, not necessarily use, but the budget and the funding they get from the state.
And has anybody evaluated, do towns own their own van? Have we ever looked into owning our own van or getting some kind of a...
Some larger communities do, yes.
Okay, but most smaller ones have a rental agreement with, like FRTA?
Correct, even if they do offer transportation at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, some towns, I think, don't even have much for transportation.
No.
From what I know.
It might be done by volunteers.
Right,
yeah,
rather than something
in their own
organized.
vehicles.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that so much of this talked about requirements if there was an accident, about drug and alcohol testing and that sort of thing. So the people involved are very well aware of what the requirements of this are?
Yes, they go through training.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And this is a reimbursable grant, is that right? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Yes,
We
it is,
spend,
correct.
they pay us back.
And we file reports with FRITA every month.
I'll make a motion to approve the FRTA grant for FY22
Okay.
for the van.
All right,
I'll second that.
all right. Any further discussion on that? If not, could I hear a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this actually took effect as of July 1st, yeah?
Correct.
You know, the number of seniors is increasing because of the baby boomer generation. The numbers between 2013 and 2060 is going to double to 98 million. So why the FRTA grant went down and why the state formula grant went down is a mystery to me, other than they shouldn't be taking money from the senior population, is my opinion. So anyway, that was just my...
All right.
But you have a point, Amy.
Well, since we're still on that, what is because it says, the total budget for fiscal year not to exceed $20,000, the total sum of this contract accounts for the total gross receipts incurred. The budget is built on the total amount of local assessment funds each town contributes to the service. So how much does the town of Southampton contribute annually to the FRTA? And we may not have that answer tonight, but that would be the question. If our assessments have gone down, then it stands to reason that that number has gone down.
Well, I think, not necessarily in the COVID year, but pre-COVID, they had to actually cut van service to be able to keep the budget, to stay within budget. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, which makes sense because wages are going up and the funds aren't going up, right? So pretty soon we're going to be at the $15 mark without an increase.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, all right. All right, next on the agenda, Fire Department EMS Brush Skid Unit Grant Award.
All right, this one's a little bit different. As you may or may not recall, the fire chief originally was going to put this in as a capital request, and the police chief and the fire chief, the police chief was going to put in a grant for a UTV because there's some cross usage, shall we say, of the vehicle. So the police department put in for the UTV. The fire department put in for the skid unit, which contains a tanker and a pump and a place to carry a stretcher with an individual on it, and a trailer to contain the unit. Of the fire department request, only the skid unit with the tanker and the pump and the stretcher was approved for, I think it's $11,250. The trailer portion was not approved. And on the police side that has put in the separate application for the UTV itself, that was not approved. So we ended up about $20,000 short of our target.
That would have been the UTV cost, or?
That and the
UTV and
trailer, that and the trailer, maybe a little bit more than the 20.
So we have a skid unit that can't skid anywhere.
Correct. I did have a conversation with our fire chief, who happens to be on vacation, so he sends his apology for not being here. But I felt it important to come back to the select board on this particular request. John feels very strongly that the town should still take the skid unit, even if it has to sit on it for, a year or so until maybe we get a grant application, or he would put in for capital again for a UTV for it. But because of the fact that, it would have been nice if we were going to get half, but I know the UTV is considerably more than this, if they gave us the UTV, which we could build around. But in this case, yes, we would have a skid unit with a pumper and tanker, and the stretcher that may not have to sit around for a year or longer before a funding for the actual UTV was approved. And I will say myself, there is definitely a need for a unit of this type. We have a lot of trails and a lot of open space, whether it's going out, searching for somebody, whether somebody's hurt, worse, or what have you, or fighting brush fires. It gives us that ability on our own. The last time the town emergency departments were involved in a search, or a search and rescue, we were able to borrow this type of vehicle from a nearby community, but it did take a while to arrange that and go out. So, on one hand, I definitely see the fire chief's point. Is the $11,250 in the skid unit in hand, worth it, even if we have to sit on it? On the flip side, I also, see the financial impact. I don't know how long it would be to take us to find another grant that and maybe get accepted for a UTV. And on my own financial side, as far as like capital funding goes, I sit there and look and say, okay, there is a need for this. However, it's used occasionally. I weigh that against, I'm assuming, and I shouldn't do that, I get in trouble. I know that the police chief skipped a request for a cruiser this year. I have a feeling it'll be back next year. Cruisers used, every day. We did not get the debt exclusion for the dump truck, which we still have to, replace. I do know that the bids came in for the masonry work at Norris School considerably above what they had requested for funding, so I'm going to assume that comes back. So I have to weigh that into my overall, thinking. So, like I say, I do see both points, but as I told John, I goes, John, I can't fund it myself or find funding for it. I really have to take this back to the select board, because it's really up to the select board whether we go out and say, okay, let's move forward and we'll sit on it, and hopefully we do find funding for the rest of it the next year, and it's $11,250 we don't have to spend it.
Does the select board have to sign off on it?
What's that?
Does the select board have to sign off on it?
Well,
it's a department head that got a grant for this much money. does he have a right to, not leave the money on the table and just get it?
Well, let me put it this way.
Somebody has to.
The select board is going to have to authorize a signatory for this grant.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because, having worked on grants in my previous life, it would have been very unusual to award a grant for the skid unit without verifying that there was a UTV or some other thing to make it all work. It's like a simple agricultural example. If you had somebody doing poultry production, you're not going to fund the chickens before you fund the chicken house. So I don't quite understand how the state did this one, except that from what I'm hearing is the fire did their part and the police did their part, and so maybe when the committees were looking at these at the state level, they didn't make the connection that there were two pieces of Southampton there, police and fire, and they focused on the fire one without looking at the police side of the equation, perhaps, to fund the UTV. Having said that, I also don't like turning back grant money.
Either do I.
It's not a good practice.
Either do I.
So I don't know. I'm open to ideas, suggestions. Yeah. Francine, go ahead.
Go ahead, John.
So I have two questions. The skid, is that another way of saying the trailer?
Well, I would say the trailer as referenced the idea was that it would be like an enclosed trailer to be pulled behind a vehicle so you could put the UTV and, the skid.
Kind of like a snowmobile trailer where the top pops up, you drive on, you park it.
Right, so, it would sit there and be protected.
And that's the skid.
Yeah, the skid unit would basically actually attach or fit to the back of the UTV.
Okay. So then the second question is, if I'm interpreting this correctly, we have until December 31st, 2021 to spend the funds, contract end date. Right. So this time is not necessarily of the urgency. This doesn't have to be decided this week.
It's going to be bought by December.
It's December 31st,
Yeah.
but not this
The money has to be, spent by then. The contract of entering into with the state is a different time frame.
When do we have to agree to this contract or not?
They're looking for it back at this point in time. I'd say maybe another week.
Well, so I have a thought, but I'll defer until everyone else's questions get asked.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to just say, could we bring this to Lindsay Sabadosa's attention and John Vellis, just to see if there's some help we could get from our representatives? If they understood the situation that we're in, maybe somewhere along there they could find what you're talking about, $20,000, so that we can make this this project whole.
Certainly try that. I don't
For American Rescue Funds? Does this qualify for American Rescue Funds?
Yeah. Rescue us.
That I have seen so far, but they're supposed to come out with more detailed information on that in a few weeks, so.
I mean, we could certainly ask them. I get the impression that part of the reason this happened is that they had whatever their pot of money was, and they were trying to spread it out.
It was only $380,000 to be done across the state.
So they were probably just trying to spread it out among, as many municipalities as they can, so that they can promote how many towns they assisted, right?
But I'm saying maybe out of another pocket, they could find this money.
What about surplus vehicles? I mean, right now, is there any, what are the vehicles that are currently in the fire department? I mean, I know there was recently, within the last couple of years, there was a new vehicle, and they ended up keeping the older one for like transporting hoses or training or something. Is there any opportunity within the department to at least partially fund the UTV?
That's a good idea.
Well, if it was through a surplus vehicle, it would have to be auctioned off. You don't know how much you'd get for that. It would come, suppose, it would come back to the general fund and have to be appropriated. I don't know if, like, with procuring or acquiring a police cruiser or a dump truck, if a UTV dealer would take a trade on another type of vehicle.
No, I was thinking about raising funds, or getting funds that could go towards, it seems like it's similar purchase. I mean, it's similar departments, similar. In the past, I know certain vehicles have been one particular year, the benefactors were the firefighters fund, and that wasn't necessarily well received by everybody. So I just wondered if the town could be a beneficiary of any surplus vehicles within the fire department.
Like I say, the only way I know of the town being a beneficiary of that is if there were surplus vehicles not being used, auction them off.
Yeah.
Funds come to the general fund, then you'd have to
Appropriate, right.
Correct.
It's the usual way, yeah. I mean, what would we gain by waiting a week or two? What?
Yeah.
What's
Well, I would make, my suggestion would be to table this and send it back to the fire chief, possibly talk to the Fire Aid Association, see if they can find the 20,000. You know, much like the Friends on the Council on Aging support, it's an unbudgeted item at this point in time. And we all went through the last election. Ed's already made the points as to why we probably should not support a vehicle that, you know, if it has to be used, then we'll want it, right? But we need the cruisers on the street. We need the dump truck replaced. All those cost well in excess of 20,000. I mean, the dump truck is 300 and something, right?
261.
261 without detailing. So then, but, you know, I'm happy to support the 11,250 if the department, if the chief can show us where that other money's going to come from outside of the budget. And, you know, I don't know if there's a further item on our list later tonight, or I might be getting confused with emails. But they have a support group. They have an association. Perhaps they can step in, see what happened here, step in and offer a donation of $20,000 to make this whole thing happen.
I also support the, that and contacting the legislators, but I would want to do it in conjunction with fire chief, not separately.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so in that case, John will be back in a couple weeks. He'll be back by our next meeting on the 24th? Probably, yeah.
Should be, yes.
We could have him,
Just table it for now?
he'd come to the meeting and just tell us what options he's got. There may be other grants that he's aware of that I'm not aware of that he could apply for too.
Sure.
Does that
That
work?
makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's table it for 2 weeks until the next meeting on that. I think in general, though, none of us really would like to turn back grant money, but knowing that we've got a lot of pressure on capital fund requests this year, that would not necessarily be a given to put this in there as well. So there has to be some creative thinking about where else we could go between John and Ian both. Maybe they can have some other ideas, okay? All right. So one less thing for you to sign tonight, Ed. Moving on, the Mass Trails Grant. This is on the Greenway right-of-way acquisition.
Right, this is
Another state grant.
This is for $100,000.
Right.
And as part of that, for acceptance and the contracts, the select board would need to designate a signatory for that. The select board chair would need to sign that authorization, and then the person that is authorized as a signatory would have to appear before the town clerk and sign the proof of signatory in front of the town clerk and have it certified or notarized.
Okay. So this is for the partial payment toward the right-of-way acquisition of the rail trail from the railroad.
Correct.
I guess my only worry a little bit here is it's the 100,000, but the contract performance date is June 30th, 2022. That's going to be tight.
I can reach out and see if there's any possible extension to go along with this at all.
I mean, I think in reality, by the time we get whatever we have to do done with, getting additional funds to make up the total cost of the right-of-way estimate anyway, and then doing all that has to be done with abutters, with the railroad itself, a year's going to go by very, very, very quickly.
I would say you're correct.
Yeah, I mean, if we could at least get at least 6 months extension, if not more.
Well, I would
Maybe a
suggest
year?
that we, enter into the contract, and I can have the conversation with, I think they recognize that this might be a long-haul project, and ask them if there, is a possibility for an extension separate to this.
Yeah,
I mean, it's sort of, the language is already in here to that extent. We would need to request it and justify it, but it
Yeah.
looks like it's a possibility that they would consider extending this.
most grants have that
Yeah.
kind of extendability to them, so that's a possibility, so. All right, what is anybody's thought about this one? Are we willing to go ahead and accept this grant and decide who should be our signatory for it?
This was the second 100,000, right? This isn't what came through.
Correct, and the first one's still hard for me, because I was telling Chris, because they had reached out to me and for Housing Choice and asked me if we had spent anything during fiscal year '21, and I said, let me check. I don't believe we did, but let me check. And I actually got this confused because it comes from Housing Choice, but it's their small town capital. So I checked on the, shall we say, wrong grant at first, not recognizing that, this one's actually the $100,000 for the Greenway right away. So
Yeah.
yes, there's two different $100,000 grants that
Right, okay,
we've been awarded to help with the acquisition of that right away.
okay.
So do you need a vote to authorize the chair to sign, or
The chair or,
designee?
Well, basically what you'd be doing is authorizing a signatory, which I would suggest be myself for this one, and then once that's done, like I say, the chair has to sign the form that authorizes me to be the signatory, and then I have to sign the official signatory form in front of the town clerk so she can identify that is my signature and certify it.
are you the signatory for the Mass Trails Concom one as well?
No,
Concom is themselves?
Concom is themselves, correct.
All right, well, how about, could we have a motion to have the town administrator be the signatory for the Mass Trails?
So moved. So
acquisition
moved.
grant?
I'll second it.
All right. Any more discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Who's the second there?
Rini? Rini.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that one. Eddie will be the signatory, and you can give me whatever I need to countersign, okay? All right, moving on. We are at,
Short-term disability.
yeah, employee short-term disability approval.
Yeah, and you have the information in front of you. Because of HIPAA laws, I won't say anything as far as the
Correct.
individual's name, what the medical condition is, whatever.
Right.
I will say that, yes, this person is definitely eligible for our short-term disability policy, and would recommend that the select board approve it and that the chair sign the authorization form.
I'll make a motion to approve this request for short-term disability.
Have a second, please?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Did we change the form to select board?
Yeah, I know. Everything I read around, it's got one or the
Everything
other.
says, yes,
Yeah. We keep doing the Board of Selectmen.
yes.
I'll see who's got that.
Who's got the magical form, huh?
Well, who's got the form in Word and...
Just set it there. Sign that one. Yeah. Okay, well done. Okay, moving on. The employee wage and salary approval. Now, I believe we have most of this here for our attention.
Yes, and Jen Day, our treasurer collector, provided this to us, and this is supposed to be done and approved and signed by the select board every year for our auditors' reference when they come in and audit who is being paid how much.
Now, I'm assuming we're going to have to do this again because there's no accountant and assistant accountant on here? I know they're vacant, but wouldn't they be on here, or no?
Technically, anyone that is replaced during the year, if it differs, should be updated.
Okay.
Why is one of these firefighters below the minimum wage? Didn't that all get updated January 1 of this year?
Who's that?
Alberti?
It's 1350.
No, it's 1350.
Oh, okay, that's...
1350 was the
Oh,
minimum.
I see, that was the previous
There's
one?
no one below, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, 1377.
1377.
1377
Yeah.
correctly now, yeah.
all right, thanks, sorry, I was looking at the wrong file.
So he's on there, okay. And at this point, we also don't have figures in there for the water department, right?
Correct.
So we should move forward with this, and knowing that we're going to have to update some later on. Those.
Correct.
Those two in particular.
Yes.
Okay. So this,
And at some point, we'll have to update the town accountant.
yeah. I mean, we've got accounting vacant, but I guess I don't know if they,
Yeah, assistant town accountant.
yeah, there would have been a second position there, right? So,
And you have a vacancy here in the assessor, principal assessor. There's a name on this.
Well, actually, it's not vacant yet.
Okay,
yeah, actually just finishing
Okay.
vacation, I think. Tom.
okay, so this
Yeah,
is...
now,
so
probably very soon
legitimately.
off the
Okay.
rolls, yeah. And so this is the assistant accountant that is listed there, but not the main accountant, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and just so I'm clear, so the pay range on that one is 1928, right? For the assistant accountant? That's what's listed?
That's what the salary was, the hourly wage was in fiscal year '21.
Right.
To the person that was in that position.
Okay, anybody have any questions or comments on this? Any?
Tim Gaudette of 138 Valley Road, Board of Water Commission. So, Ed, you said that the water department employees are not on your list?
Not in terms of a fixed salary yet, because we still have to discuss that. That's on the agenda coming up.
Oh, it's
still.
still, it's a
Yeah,
different agenda item?
this is a different item,
Yeah.
yep. We're getting there. We're getting close.
That's
Thanks,
okay, Tim.
We're getting close, yep. No, this is for the ones that are already listed out here, so. So all the folks in town hall, fire department, library. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Are we okay with it? If so, could I have a motion to approve that? No, sorry.
Can I just ask, people who in the last year show as under the fire department 0 hours worked, can this list be purged? Should it be purged?
Purged how?
Then the people taken off the list.
Well, if it's a possibility that they work and have not resigned or been removed, then they need to be on the list, even if they only worked one shift during
But they
fiscal year
have-
'22.
What this is saying is 0 hours for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So nobody has, it looks like nobody has any set schedule.
Right.
So there's no baseline.
Well, they don't.
They're all on call.
they're all on call,
Right.
so they're,
If they haven't been called in a year.
but they're still available, apparently, right?
Correct.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 people.
Which column are you looking at, Trustee?
Here, you're employed as of,
The 8th column from the left.
That's years, how many years they've been here.
yeah,
So they,
What's the heading of the column?
employed.
What's the heading of the column?
It's the eighth from the left.
Bi-weekly hours.
No, what is that,
Yeah.
years employed?
Well, that's years employed, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
not hours.
Yeah, that's not, yeah, it's different.
All right,
Somebody's been less than a year.
okay, so then.
That first person has been less than a year.
Okay,
So they're actually they're newer employees.
Yeah, they're just new employees.
all right,
Yep.
But none of these columns say how many hours anybody worked in a year, right?
yes.
Which one?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
Hours per week, that's not filled in. Bi-weekly hours, it's all,
The hours
everybody
per week would
everybody
only
has
be
a
if
zero.
they
Okay.
have
It's
a
not a regular,
baseline.
it's not a
It's not a
regular schedule.
regular, okay, it's
It's not a
on
regular
call.
schedule, so.
Take it back, thank
Okay.
you.
If everybody's in favor, did we have a motion? I'm sorry, I lost track. Did we have a motion? To approve?
I don't believe we did. I'll make a motion to approve the salary scale.
All right. Can I have a second, please? Joy, second?
Sure.
Okay. All right. If no further discussion, could we have a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. Now we're at this point. We didn't lose you. All right, we're at the next agenda item, which is the Town Council legal opinion regarding the Water Commissioner's authority to set wages. And this has gone back and forth a couple of times. We have some emails in our package from July 15th, July 23rd, August 5th, after our last meeting, to clarify the issue around the town meeting vote that appropriated the enterprise fund, et cetera, right? So Ed, I'll let you
And
take some lead on explaining, and then we'll probably have questions, and
Sure.
Tim is here to give us some input too.
Basically, the short summary would be that Town Council has said that the water commissioners do not have the autonomy to set their own wage rates for their employees, and that town meeting vote does not bind the town to pay a certain annual wage to someone just because it's listed in the budget presentation. That's still subject to the regular process of going through the PPB and the select board. So it basically means that the PCFs for the two water department employees are still in limbo as far as that goes. They do not have an approved rate for fiscal year '22. And my suggestion to the select board, and I have talked to Jim Malunas about that, and Tim Gaudet from the Water Commission, is here to represent the water commissioners, that I would recommend to the select board that the select board and the water commissioners have a joint executive session to go over the pay rate or contract agreement with for the water superintendent, to see if they can come to some type of agreement of where that should actually fit in. And like I say, Tim's here from the water commissioners, but I think that's the best way to proceed forward with this particular discrepancy.
And would that include also the other employee that has not been?
I'd have to double check. I know that, like I say, the water superintendent has a contract agreement. I'd have to check in, see if the water technician also has a contract agreement with, through the water commissioners.
Okay. Tim, would you like to speak on behalf of the water commission?
Sure. For the water commissioners. So did the PPP, did they approve the pay increase?
They did.
They did. So So I guess I'll just point that out, that that was approved by them. And I think that the salary was set, thinking that, I think the superintendent's salary is, over the last few years, has fallen behind the salaries of superintendents in other, Hampshire County communities. And so I think that the intent was to try to, achieve a correction, kind of similar to the discussion you guys had earlier, where, the salaries, I think across many boards are falling behind. And so it was, we're concerned about retention. There are positions that open up periodically. And so anyway, I think it's the position of the water commissioners that we'd like to see the salaries that were approved at town meeting approved by the select board.
Okay. And I think our discussion earlier when one of your colleagues was here was that part of the issue with when it does get approved at town meeting, the enterprise fund is never broken out for the townspeople to understand how that figure is arrived at. And I know myself and a few others maybe were not comfortable with such a huge raise, understanding that things have lagged behind, but that would be a very significant amount of money put forward in that one position. So that was where we wanted to have further enlightenment as to whether we were bound by that town meeting vote, which it sounds like we are not. But we do need to come to some resolution, obviously. So I don't know, anybody have any further thoughts? I mean, Ed has got a suggestion on the floor. And
I like Ed's suggestion.
John?
So, yeah, I think it's a good start, but it does not go far enough. So let's just deal with the issue while it's at hand. So I'm fine with the executive session of the two boards sooner rather than later, because the employees were already told this was going to be on hold for 2 weeks, and we're at the 4-week mark right now. So in fairness to them, it should move forward. I think, we go into executive session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel. That covers both of it. I also think we need to have, whether the foundation is laid there so we can have an open and honest dialogue in executive session and then come out of executive and some of the areas go public. But I don't want to see this issue reoccur next year when another form goes to the PPQ. So we need to, okay, here are the ground rules, here's what the attorney said, assuming you don't have an attorney with a countering opinion. If we haven't shared this with the Water Commission, we should share it with them, figure out when they can meet, and let's have a whole conversation about how this is going to be. Yes, maybe they, I'm just thinking out loud, there's a line item that they can put in the budget that suffices Mass state law. Doesn't mean that we can't ask them and they won't agree to give us supporting documents behind it that shows that. The school does it. Here's the whole budget for the school. It gets summed down to one line so you can see it. Again, the transparency on that, because as a ratepayer who gets water in the town, you got an extra $30,000 to throw in there. Maybe my rate is too high. It's not the case, but there's several ratepayers out there. So I think getting the the 5 of us together, having a full conversation in executive session, getting on the same page.
Okay.
I think there was some discussion on the salaries at annual town meeting. I don't think it was, we weren't trying to hide anything. I thought it was, I'll have to go back and look at the documentation, but I do remember some discussion. In fact, I stood up and spoke for it. So.
Okay.
The opinion of the attorney is still that it has to be approved by this.
No, that's true.
So we're still, that's where we are.
Yeah. Any other comments, Joy? So would be the proposition to wait until our next, not to do a special meeting, but to do an executive session on our August 24th meeting? Or?
And I mean, I'll reach out to the chair, Jim Malunas, see, if that's acceptable to them, if they want to try to get, it may make some sense to maybe try to have a special meeting just for this, and try to come up with some possible dates that work for both boards.
Okay.
And if it does be on that same day as our meeting, could we start early and have executive session first for that one issue? So if there is action for us to take, it could be taken at the meeting.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. All right, so that would be an idea, to do the 24th, but have it as the first item on the agenda, the executive session, and then come into public session, or start in public session, go to executive session,
Yeah.
come back to public session. As an idea?
Let me do this. John, as chair of the Norris School Committee, are you going to be looking for a joint meeting with the select board to fill the vacancy in the Norris School Committee?
I believe it's on the agenda tomorrow night for the failure to elect, yes.
Okay, and then I would just throw it around of, okay, does that make sense? Or does it make sense to have the joint meeting with the school committee the first thing on the 24th, which may lead us back to doing this as a special meeting of the two boards. And I'm leaning to trying to do this as a special meeting to the two boards,
Okay.
because I have a presumption, strong feeling that this is going to possibly be a lengthy discussion, which just makes, whether it's at the beginning of the meeting or the end of the meeting, just makes the whole night longer, and maybe whatever's on at the end less productive.
Well, our choices, our only empty spot for August is, this, on a Tuesday anyway, would be the 17th. So that means we're literally meeting 4 Tuesdays in a row. But
Well, I'm not recommending it be on a Tuesday, so,
okay.
yeah.
But there may be conflicts with other people's meetings on the 18th or the 19th. I don't know.
I'm out of state that whole time.
Yeah. So what date might work for you at all? And does the 17th work at all or not?
No, I fly out on the 17th, fly back on the 19th.
Okay, you're gone that whole week anyway.
Yeah.
So do we have any timeframes before the 24th anyway? To have a quorum? Not have a quorum, but have everybody present, especially.
It won't meet the 48-hour rule.
Nope.
No,
Monday the 16th.
we don't make the 48 hours.
Monday, the 16th, is that a Concom meeting? maybe?
That is a Concom meeting.
And the ZBA meeting.
Yeah.
But, if we started at, what time is Concom?
6 usually. And ZBA is at 5:30.
Yeah.
Boy.
Okay, to the 16th.
If it's just executive session, can't we have it on Sunday evening? No? Okay.
Well. Anybody got a date they want to suggest here?
You're gone the whole week of the 16th, is that it?
I'm here Monday and Friday,
Okay.
so possibly the,
Monday?
Monday conflicts with 2 other scheduled meetings already, Concom and ZBA that were
What time is Concom?
6,
6.
And ZBA is 5:30.
5:30.
Could we make it 7?
So you could attend at least part of Concom?
That's fine. I'm in communication with Marlo.
I'm not sure I can make it, but I'll let you know.
Yeah. Any other choice dates for you?
Not good for John, 18 or 19 I could do, but not the 16th.
Okay, 18 or 19? What's
But
on?
he's out of town until Friday, and I can't do
Around.
Friday.
Can't do Friday. Okay.
what about Monday the 23rd?
23rd is fine
Do the
for
23rd.
me.
Jim may not be here. We have to move our daughter to, because we work that day. The 5-hour drive, so 5-hour drive back.
I mean, so that puts us past the 24th, and again, I want to be respectful to the 2 employees that this is impacting. If we can pick a date on the 25th, 26th, or 27th, and then have it on the 31st in the event that there needs to be a vote.
Okay, so 24th or 25th, what do those look like for?
24th is our meeting.
We're meeting on the 24th already.
Or we go back to the
So the 25th
24th.
and the 26th. Housing Authority is on the 25th. That's the only one I see scheduled so far. 25, so that's what day? That's a Thursday.
I think we're already pushing it beyond the next meeting anyway. I think we should just
Yeah.
stick with the 24th if it's going to come to that.
Yeah, then just go back to the 24th. Then it's just a question of how are you going to fit it in? Are you going to have that first and then?
Is it possible to take some of the routine matters on the 24th and push them to the 31st?
I was gonna say, we might be able to just figure the schedule on the 24th.
Good idea.
And tighten it up to
Yeah, try
really
to do
focus
that.
on this and to focus on the school board appointment.
On the 31st.
And then save our more routine business. The good thing about it is that this is before any of our report schedules start. So
Right.
it's kind of now or never. We really need to get it done, I think. Let's go for the 24th, and you and I can work out
How we
timing
go about
of
it. Yeah.
what works, so we don't have a terribly prolonged meeting here.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
And
The
make these
school
notes.
committee appointment has to
So,
be
School committee at the same time on that.
Yep.
24th.
co-meeting as opposed to they approve, then we approve?
What's that?
Does it have to be a joint meeting with the school committee? Can't they approve it and then we approve it, or it has to be at the same time?
Same time.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one shouldn't take very long. I mean, that should be very,
Right.
very simple. This will be the more
Right.
prolonged discussion, probably. Okay, well, let's go for the 24th, and we'll figure out a schedule that would make some level of sense to get through the night.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right.
Tim. Appreciate it.
Okay. COVID-19 update, Ed. I don't know if you've got anything in particular. I just got a note from Kate Swistack-Rooks, who's the head of the Board of Health, so following up on what Francine announced, just saying, I'm sure Francine filled you in about the mask mandate in municipal buildings effective tomorrow morning. This way, there will be masks required for the school committee meeting tomorrow. We're also going to be drafting an advisory for people to wear masks in public places. I talked to Francine about how boards can also elect to meet outside to improve ventilation, but that's not possible. But if that's not possible, wearing masks, socially distancing, and increasing ventilation is necessary. So that's what I know. Any more information than that?
It's
Well,
more
the
than
only other thing I
That's
just
more
add,
indifferent than I was going to actually put into my report. And
the only thing is what John added when I gave it is that masks required in town buildings regardless of vaccination status.
Yeah.
So that has to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to hold off and actually see how it's worded writtenly.
Okay.
Yeah, just to,
Well, but I mean,
yeah.
there,
I mean, you know, it becomes, are there exceptions for medical reasons and religious reasons? You know, I've heard it said a couple of different ways of municipal or town public buildings. I want to see that wording rather than just public buildings, because public buildings has a whole different connotation to me. So we know some change is coming.
yeah. It
tomorrow.
wasn't clear to me when this is getting written, though.
When the vote was taken, the health director was giving the directive to have it written up tonight.
Okay.
In effect, on the doors at 8 a.m. tomorrow on bright pink paper. There seems to be an anticipation of 300 attending the school committee meeting tomorrow night, so.
Oh, wow.
Was there any discussion about the case tracing numbers? Has the town seen an increase in?
Yes, I asked the question, and what the information that we got is there were 5 cases, active cases here in Southampton. No detail on the case tracing, because I said having that information to give people about the potential of their exposure, that's all. Just put it in a context would help people. I didn't get,
No.
we didn't really get very far with that.
We were directed towards a website
Yeah.
at DPH to go and get it, and I know on our end, on school, and one of the things we're going to ask Dr. Bonneville to do tomorrow night is reinstitute the weekly superintendent's report that had that one pager that had all the information on it, and push it out to all the parents through Norris as a means to try and communicate it.
Okay.
It's a step.
All right. Well, just to say, at least anybody coming to Town Hall tomorrow, and to the library, and to the school, and to fire department, police department, what other departments do we have? Highway department,
Highway department, yeah, water department.
water department, please be prepared to
COA.
bring and wear your mask, and the COA, by all means. Be prepared to bring and wear your mask tomorrow morning. Good advice, no matter whether we have it written down on paper yet or not, but I think that's where we should all be heading and try to be as safe as we can and
Right, and neighboring communities have already instituted, Northampton and Easthampton both.
Right, and I think Easthampton had a fairly clear letter out from their public health nurse, I believe, that was quite explicit.
It was a family that just got back from Florida. I couldn't tell you that. No.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that's where we are in terms of COVID updates. At this point, we haven't restarted any kind of phone conversation bi-weekly meeting. That may be something that might have to happen later on with maybe relevant parties, but hopefully we can hold off on that for a little bit longer.
I'm surprised nothing's come out from the governor's office, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, nothing more from the governor's office, has there been?
No, I mean, for the most part, everything I've seen at this point has pretty much pushed it down to the local level. I mean, I felt it was coming, however, Hampshire County in general right now is the only county out of 14 or 15 in the state that isn't in high risk or I forget what the next one. Substantial risk. So, but the numbers here were climbing too. I seem to remember that within the county, at least for Southampton, for the last report that I looked at, our numbers were higher this week than they were last week. Not a lot. I think it was a couple of cases, but ours were going up slightly also.
Okay. Well, I think we all have heard the news, and we need to keep ourselves, our families, our community in general, and especially for those kiddos under 12 that have no choice in terms of getting a vaccine yet. We need to be aware and protective of everybody, okay? All right, moving on. CARES Act updates.
Yes. Chris and I have been working on an update with that. Chris has been going back through some records that just to double check some things. Last time we had talked, we were figuring roughly as an estimate that we'd probably have about $160,000 more due to what either hasn't been spent currently or due to the changes of FEMA reimbursing 100% instead of 75%, which frees up 25% of the categories that were in the CARES Act. So we're going to take a little deeper look at that over the next week, and then Chris, with doing some of her proving of, her trying to prove some of the expenses, found one that we need to double check just to make sure that we're not double counting one particular expense, which was fairly substantial. So we'll be going through that. And,
good. Making headway on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy between what was the two different, shall we say, bundles or categories, and then the changes that have occurred, throughout the year with it. But I think we've got it pretty well under a handle on it.
One thing I think we ought to know, and maybe it's known, but just not by me, is just what we have for a current stock of PPE in general. Not knowing what we're heading into in the fall and winter, knowing how much trouble we had getting it when we couldn't get it and when we needed it. To the extent I know there were some large orders through the EMD, and there were things stocked over there. Fire and others have done, so we may have enough, but it would be good to just get a...
Yeah, we've got a decent stockpile here, but there's also going to be a stockpile at the fire station and the police station.
Okay.
So
well,
let me put that together.
Yeah, just to be sure that we, aren't making assumptions incorrectly about what we might have, because who knows what we are heading into here.
And I think what we'll start to experience, perhaps, if we don't have sufficient inventory, is there going to be delays in this stuff being available, the same thing we went through last year.
Exactly. No doubt about it. So, okay. All right, and then on to ARPA, the American Rescue Act, which has also got some other funny name, Local Recovery Fund or CLRF or some other crazy name that they've given.
I can't keep up with them. Pretty much the same as I reported last time. We have the 3 categories of infrastructure. We can use it for any training required by the police due to the police reform laws. There is, part of those funds are available for rental assistance or mortgage assistance. Seems to be funding for food assistance. Also seems to be funding for case tracing, additional or available testing, funding for vaccination clinics and what have you, but my understanding is that there's some more definitive information that's supposed to be released in another couple of weeks. And then also Jen Day was telling me that they were telling her at her UMass Treasurer Collectors School today that they are anticipating that the other portion of the ARPA funds are supposed to be released to the communities that don't have county governments probably in the next week.
So that would be us. That would
be us. We're
called one of those NEUs, which is a what, something unit? I forget what they're called.
Non-entitled
unit or something?
Non-entitlement unit, yes, correct.
Yeah, so that's what places like we're called. And there is something, though, about, I'm thinking I saw in one of the DLS bulletins, there might be an early reporting that we may have to do on even the first tranche that we got.
Yeah.
So even if it's 0, I think we may have to report in. So we just need to keep track on that deadline on that.
Sure.
On that. But seems to me it was like end of September or something.
Is there a plan, though, for, I mean, did you send out a message to department heads, or is there a plan for a group of people to get together to discuss how to use this fund?
Yeah, we started it at the last department head meeting. There weren't many there, so we'll continue it at this week's.
Yeah, we need to get some ideas. And I think, too, when we do meet with the water folks on the 24th, I don't know if we can tie that in there exactly, but I mean, the whole water sewer topic, and maybe we can't do it as part.
I mean, I know from informal conversations that the water department does have projects that they would be able to utilize that funding if we wanted to go that way.
Yeah. So as we come out of the executive session, I mean, we can have that maybe as a public session item if they have any thoughts.
You can have it up front.
Yeah. While they're here.
We also talked about getting a map of the access to internet.
We do need to get that from Charter, right? Is that what we need? Yeah. So that's something. Is that something you want to do, or I can
reach out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We need to get that done so we understand where our weak spots are in town. And the ad hoc tech committee is, we talked about it at their last meeting about funds being available for broadband. They're fine with that. At this point, they're feeling like they really need to finish the first project that they have committed themselves to, which is the laptop rollout and the voice over IP and the improvements here at Town Hall. So they were feeling a little reluctant to sort of jump in on this one. But out of that, there's probably 2 people on the committee that could form maybe a subcommittee that could help us start talking about some of that. But I think it would be helpful to have the map from Charter to know where our broadband does not reach in town, and that would give us a starting point for discussion. So let's make that a priority for next meeting too, so we know what that looks like. Okay. All right. Revenue and expenditure. I don't believe we have any updates in our package.
No.
And we are going to get that for next time, for sure, with the end of year changes in there.
Basically, right now, the audit is first on my list.
Okay.
Second is getting the fiscal year 22 budget numbers loaded in there. Third is the transfers that we have hanging from fiscal year 21 of getting those done, and then this will be next in line.
Yep. Because the transfers would tie into the revenue and expenditure report
Absolutely,
anyway,
yeah.
right? So we do need to
Yeah, and
understand where we ended up for the year,
yeah,
basically.
Regina was working on the May receipts today. Jen Day needs a couple of account numbers to complete those May receipts, so.
Chris, if I could, so this is just coming back to a thought process here, but it has to do with the receipts and revenue and the reports in the auditor's office or town accountant's office. I guess I'm unclear in my mind what the select board as a whole is thinking here. Do we have a consensus one way or the other whether we are trying to, would there be any logic in us in appointing an assistant accountant sooner rather than later? I mean, part of me makes me think we just want to vet them, identify the key people, and then once we pick an accountant, have them do the final interviews, because that's someone they're going to be working with. However, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the current person who's providing outside services to us up there, the contract's up September 1st.
What's that?
Is Regina's contract up September 1st?
No.
It's not in September?
We renewed it for another 12 weeks, so I think it's might be closer to October.
Okay, but I thought it was in September. But I'm just...
There is no contract.
It's week to week, okay.
So what I'll have to do is go back and look
No,
at what...
it's 12 weeks at a time.
Yeah, what the last appointment,
Yeah.
maybe expiration
I think it went
date
into
was.
September at some point. I don't think
Yeah.
it's the 1st, but I think you're
Yeah.
right on the September part.
Yeah.
Right, but so if there was, so we still have more interviews to do, but of the interviews we've already done, I for one am comfortable saying there are credible options there. Does it make sense to have bring that person on board and have them start working in conjunction with Regina to take over some of the data entry things that Regina's doing, so Regina, who's highly competent, could possibly shift and help in other areas. And maybe there's not enough time to this, I don't know. It's just things are I don't know what the other four of you are thinking. Would you rather bring the assistant in afterwards and let the new town accountant make that decision, or would you rather us force somebody now and do it?
I think when we first started the process, the thinking was we would get the accountant in and let that person be part of the hiring process. And I think understanding that Regina was doing a lot of data entry, a lot of assistant accountant work. And I think it may have shifted over time now that it's been, so many months without somebody. I think the urgency is to get that office staffed. Whereas before, I think it was more, let the person who's the department head select their assistant or present them with the 2 finalists or something. So I'd defer to the 3 of you that are involved in the process. I mean,
Interviews, yeah.
based on the qualifications of the people you're seeing.
Yeah, and how would we do that? Could we do like an emergency temporary appointment or something? How would that even work?
That would be the way we'd have to go about it, yes.
So to even just to overlap, say, a month or 2 with Regina, for example?
It might even be
Or-
just,
or
a few weeks
a
or
few
whatever.
weeks or
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
So that could be a possibility. Okay. All right, well, let's keep that in the back of our heads anyway, in terms of what might be possible, but,
I would honestly rather see us, if we find a good assistant accountant candidate that we would like to hire, because if we don't, they may take a position with someone else. We run that risk. Plus the fact that if we get a new accountant in, who's going to be doing their backup work for them? They're going to start the same way Regina has spent all of these months.
this is true.
Trying to do 2 jobs, with one, out of one position. So I'm in favor of going ahead and hiring a good, from among the candidates that we have, and I think we have some good ones. Go ahead and make the decision.
okay. All right. All right, well, then, let's wait till we have you guys get through your interviews, and we'll have some information for that for the next meeting.
I'm hoping we'll be done, if we get everybody wrapped up. We may have to go to next Monday, but that should be the end of it from the set of resumes that we have in front of us at this point in time. We should be done.
Is your goal to present 2 finalists for executive discussion for interviews by the select board?
Thinking,
Yes, and just as we also believe that once we identify the finalists, we probably would offer them a cover letter explaining that we want to move them forward and name them publicly. And in that cover letter, state very clearly in bold, this is the wage. Because
Yes,
right now
thank you.
the ad is a
Yeah.
range, and have them sign off on that. So if
Yes,
they get this
right.
far, they already know what that number is.
Thank you.
Because the ad would have given a range, right? Which
Correct.
is, yeah,
Right, that they would accept within that range.
yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we don't want to get all the way down through this entire process and have somebody be under the misconception of whatever the wage amount is, and then say, oh,
Then
sorry.
blow the whole thing.
Yeah, so we've
Yes.
wasted a lot of time if they don't have that
Absolutely.
expectation. Clear, okay, all right, good points. All right, any other thoughts about that? Well, hope these interviews go well, and we can come up with a couple of top candidates to talk about. That's great.
That's news.
All right, next thing, not too much, we're almost getting done here, guys. We talked about, and I think this is an important committee, that we talked about this idea of this ad hoc collaborations and cost efficiencies alternatives committee, which is a mouthful, frankly, but we did a little abbreviating
We
here.
should economize on our words.
I know, yeah, we can start there, right? But anyway, for lack of anything better at the moment, just calling it CCEA. And so this is just an attempt at a draft charge, doesn't have to be, decided tonight necessarily, but just trying to throw some ideas out about how we can make this a committee that is not just select board, but it involves other people in town hall, some people from the community as well. So should I read this out? What would people
I think that'd be
prefer?
great.
Yeah?
I think so.
All right, okay. So here, and this is totally a draft, so first draft and can be the 99th draft as well, okay? So purpose would be to explore a variety of ideas and options to maximize Southampton's financial and personnel resources, gain efficiency and/or cost savings in providing services to the residents, enhance employment competitiveness, and improve the town's long-term financial health and sustainability. The committee shall consist of 13 members, which is a big committee, but 2 of whom may be from the select board, 4 town employees, 1 from Finance Committee, 1 from the Norris School Committee, 1 from the Planning Board, the town administrator, and 3 town residents with relevant career experience in financial management and appointed by the select board. The 4 town employees will be nominated by the employees themselves and confirmed by the select board, 1 each from the following clusters, who would then represent the ideas of each of the group members. In other words, we can't have everybody on town hall on a committee, so trying to make this manageable to a certain extent. So cluster 1 would be assessor, accountant, treasurer, collector. Cluster 2, building commissioner, town clerk. Cluster 3, police, fire, highway. Cluster 4, the Board of Health, library trustees, and the Board of Council on Aging. The committee would select its coordinator and clerk and meet at least monthly during FY22, after which time it may be extended and its composition modified. The committee will at a minimum apply the following criteria to options being considered: level of cost savings, service delivery improvements, timeliness, improve public access to services, feasibility to implement, and potential impact, negative or positive. So that's a whole big mouthful of a potential charge, but I figured we may as well throw it out there and tear it apart. So any thoughts? I mean, a 13-person committee is not, not ideal, but again, if we want a fairly,
It's still smaller than Hampshire Regional.
well, that's good to know.
And speaking of Hampshire Regional, that would be one of my comments. Not
okay.
that I'm looking to add more people, but
okay.
I definitely feel Hampshire should have some
Clustered in with
representation.
the school.
Yeah? Okay, all right.
It's a
I
huge
guess-
part of the budget.
True. I guess I felt that some of that was kind of out of our control, though, in terms of the budget, but maybe not. No? I mean,
It is.
I mean, we
to
have
some
our
extent.
assessment. I mean, do we have a whole lot of say in what that,
Well, what you could
Amounts
do,
to?
what you could do is the Norris School Committee, well, don't announce this before the vote tomorrow to reorganize, but whoever Norris appoints as its member to Hampshire Regional, could be member of Hampshire Regional.
They could
have that
serve a dual
person.
purpose.
Okay,
Yeah.
you could maybe do a dual purpose. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to also have an odd number, but also not to make this
The other
too
thing,
unwieldy.
the other thing is you're mentioning under employees, members of the Board of Health, the library trustees, and the Board of the Council on Aging,
Just
none of
Council on
whom
Aging.
are employees.
Right.
Right.
That's all.
Oh, so where did I say?
On the last in the four group,
Yeah.
the Board of Health,
4 in town.
library trustees, and the.
Oh, you're making the point that they are not
Yeah, they're
employees.
not employees.
Sorry, yeah, okay.
So 3 town employees, 1 board
So
member.
three employees and-
Three town employees
And
and,
the Council on Aging.
oh, it's not a board of,
Yeah.
Yeah, it just says, and just Council on Aging.
I think how you clustered them makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Did we leave any out? I mean, would you
Well,
want to,
I was trying to be sure we hadn't, but
You
feel
want-
free. So it'd be
you
three.
want to add the water commission
Water.
in
Oh,
there?
water, there we go.
Under, with the building, town clerk?
Sure,
Yep.
yep,
Where's,
of course, yep,
highway is there, yeah.
yep. Highway, fire, police together.
So then,
The water department works with the highway department.
Yeah,
Yeah. They might, yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of.
yeah,
there's a
probably they
building
fit better,
too, though.
police, fire, and highway.
water with them.
Okay.
I guess the way I'm seeing this is kind of like a blue ribbon committee, right? They're going to go out, they're not, and they're going to go out, do the research, and present the ideas for action and consideration by the select board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I was saying, two can be from the select board to be on it, to kind of help guide the process maybe, and
Yeah, so the 3 from the community, right now, you have them as all in financial management,
yeah,
but, possibly to be made up of 1 with a financial background, 1 with a human resource background,
Okay.
1 with an operations background.
Or one also with municipal background, because we do have residents in town who either do work or have worked. I mean, to give us some insight on how other towns might do things. That's what I'm looking
Yep.
for.
maybe, okay. All right, so not necessarily those 3 as all financial, okay.
I like your idea about it.
It gives a cross-verse, right?
Yep.
And depending on what you get. And then when we word this and put it out there for people to apply, hopefully we get,
Yeah.
30 residents that want to apply. Maybe only 3 got on, but we can
Yeah.
maybe cherry pick and invite some others to come in and provide feedback, just not be part of the voting 13.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's true. I mean, I think there could be other people that could attend, want to attend.
Right.
They certainly could, but I think to make it as manageable as possible, as I guess I would call this the voting committee per se, maybe.
And then just the 2 from the select board. I think because this is our primary charge that we have, I would say that 1 to be the chair, and if the chair doesn't, then I'll do it as vice. And that person should be reporting out on this committee and should be spearheading, basically chair or orchestrating that process. I mean,
I wasn't thinking, though, that the chair or the vice chair, if we were on that, though, that we would be the chair of this committee, though.
it's our number 1 priority. I think that has to stay on task the whole time.
Okay.
And then, be the one that's reporting back
I
out
agree.
to the group.
Yeah.
I agree. I just think that the people from the public and then 4 employees who all report to different boards or Ed or somebody, I just feel like, I think the leadership has to be consistent, and it should be one of the select board members.
Okay. All right, good to know.
I'd like the department heads, though, to chime in on this, maybe. I don't know if we can just,
Yeah.
we worked on a draft a little bit. You're going to have your department head meeting.
Thursday.
Yeah,
Thursday?
could you
Okay.
just, I'm just wondering if
Yeah,
that
we
could
can
be
tidy
like
this up for
share this,
Thursday
see
and
what kind of
yeah.
feedback they get, see if they want to suggest a different cluster of employees,
Yep,
what kind of suggestions they might have.
okay.
And I think, I know we just finalized that monthly or weekly meeting reporting schedule, but this group wasn't on it, was it?
They're going to be on the March 29th by week.
Or it's just going to be one of the reports from every week.
Which group wasn't on it? Which one are you talking about?
This one we're talking
Oh, no,
about. We need
no,
to
they
put
were
them-
not
we
on
need to
it.
plug them in on the report
They weren't on
schedule.
the master schedule of
Yes.
reports. No, they were not.
Well, it's like Ed's every one.
But that
It'll just be every one, right?
Yeah, yeah. They could be just maybe part of our regular reports or something. Okay, well, how about Ed and I can work to tidy this up along with the draft report schedule and stuff, and if, I'll have to check my schedule, Ed, but if I'm free, I could maybe join in on the department head meeting on Thursday, and we could go over all this together.
Okay.
All right? What time do you have that usually?
10.
10?
Is that in person at this point? Yeah.
Okay. That way I can answer.
Well, thank you for drafting
So,
this.
but feel free, I mean, if there's, we can certainly think about it some more if there's other things to do, but this was sort of the best notion that
Good job.
came at the moment. Okay. All right. Next, Greenway update. Anything, Ed, on that?
Just to let you know that the process has started. I've reached out to KP Law to start the conversation with Pioneer Valley Railroad. Katie reached back to me, and Lucy got me the certified vote from the town meeting for the article. I've sent that to her, and she's going to reach out to Pioneer Valley Railroad, and she's going to put together a more definitive timeline than she had for our grant
Yes.
application.
Okay.
So.
Great. Okay. Good. Well, that's a good start. Okay.
And then the Greenway Committee is in the process of trying to come up with a date for a meeting.
Yeah.
In September.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Do we have a liaison to Greenway?
I think I was going to be it, just partly because I was working on the grants to them
John
at
just
one
said he
point in
was.
time, and
Well,
then
no,
John and I were
Okay, you're both
sort of
okay.
between us, but just at least to start, because I've been involved in doing the grant work on it, but I can definitely, we can swap places back
Is
and
there
forth.
a representative to the Public Safety Committee?
Public safety, did we decide on anybody for Public Safety Committee?
I think so.
I thought we had. I'd have to go back and look at the list.
Francine?
We talked about it, but I don't think it was
I
ever
don't know if we made a
finalized.
decision. I don't know. Would you like to do that?
I'm happy to be part of that,
Yeah? Okay.
if there isn't somebody already designated.
I don't think we talked about it,
Right.
and then I don't think we
And then it
did.
didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
So Rini wants to do it? You can do it? Good.
All right.
I'll help you
Okay, sure.
when you're not available, but
Yep.
Okay.
that's fine.
All right. Everybody okay with that? Do we?
Yep.
All right. Everybody's in favor? So be it. All right. Good. All right. Thanks for that. Okay. Any other business that can't wait until August 24th meeting? Don't know of anything in particular. Okay. No personnel change forms, PCFs or PRFs. Francine, we have a few warrants, if you want to just read them off for us.
Okay, PD 22-2 payroll deduction warrant for $48,422.31. PD 22-4A payroll deduction for retirement for $159,148.96. W22-5 a vendor payable warrant for $181,237.66. P22-06 payroll warrant for $272,689.77. And PD 22-6 payroll deduction for $45,204.04.
Okay. Spending our money. There we go. Okay. No other documents, I think, needing signature at this point in time. No minutes to approve from our general sessions. Any updates on the pending items, our usual green community or the charter building or anything?
No boundary, no.
No updates there? shall we keep these things still pending, and just, at some point, I'd like to kind of close these guys off at some point in time, but we don't want to lose track of them. In fact, there may be a couple more things to put on pending, or maybe they'll come back up as old business to remind ourselves on, but we shall see. All right, select board meetings, the 24th and 31st. Did we have any correspondence? The only thing I think we got, and it wasn't totally, I believe we were copied on it, it was related to some, again, another nasty tree over on Cook Road conservation area that basically we were involved in, but it was pretty much Eversource that took care of it, rather than anybody having to do it with the town. And the residents over on Cook Road wrote a nice note to everybody involved, but it wasn't directed totally at select board, but that got taken care of. Any open time for the public? Are we all set?
Celebrate.
Celebrate, yeah.
Saturday.
Get ready to celebrate, yeah. All right, and actually tomorrow night, there's a concert in the park as well at 7 o'clock. Sarah the Fiddler, I believe. So there's that, and then,
What day is that?
tomorrow night, on just a regular concert series. And then Friday is the other beginning of Celebrate weekend.
Yes.
Thanks for all your work,
And
Tammy.
Decades is the band for Friday night.
For Friday night, yeah, exactly.
It's free.
And it's all free, exactly. All right.
And Saturday's pretty much free too.
Yes. No.
Tammy, thanks for all you've been
Definitely
doing,
is.
Tammy.
Yeah, no, it's great. We got a lot of support this year, and I think everybody's anxious to get back together and do something since we couldn't do it last year, so.
So Tammy Loomis, 298 College Highway. So on a quick note with the raffles, we are going to have T-shirts for sale that are $10, but the raffles, it's $5 a sheet, and there's 25 tickets on a sheet. There's 44 items.
Wow.
You're going to be selecting. Lots of really nice things that businesses here in town, out of town, donated. Come see everything, and bring your lunch. We're providing dessert, and we're going to have a lot of activities happening. Music and balloonists and barnyard, and the Boy Scouts have this huge thing they're going to be doing.
Yep. And we've got the Citizen of the Year Award, we've got
Yes.
various other things going on as well, music, et cetera, so.
Memory Hour is going to be talking about Sheldon Academy.
Right.
That's going to be 10 to 11 over at the church.
At the church, and Charlie Fisher is doing that.
Yep.
So come and learn a little bit of history about Southampton and the first, or one of the early schools that used to sit
I was
pretty
going
much
to say,
right
Sheldon
here.
Academy was here, correct?
It was
Yeah.
before Larrabee got built,
Started
yeah,
building
pretty much,
sections.
right next door, yeah,
It's really interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good.
Hopefully people can come.
Okay, so with that, I think we will finish up our regular meeting, and we are going to go to executive session and not return to open session. And the executive sessions are MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is for Local 130 New England Police Benevolent Association Dispatch. And MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements. Approval of executive session minutes, March 9, April 20, April 29, June 29, June 20, July 27th. So with that, we will be adjourning this meeting and moving into executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn and to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Lumbra, aye.
Tishman, aye.
Roden, aye.
Piper, aye.
Fowles, aye. Okay, meeting is adjourned at about
8:58.
8:58. All right, thank you very much.